The Project Gutenberg ebook of early German music in Philadelphia. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. Title: Early German Music in Philadelphia. Author: Robert Rutherford Drummond. Release date: March 9, 2024. Ebook number 73127. Language: English. Original publication: New York, D. Appleton and Company, 1910. Credits: Carla Faust and the online distributed proofreading team at https://www.pgdp.net. This file was produced from images generously made available by the Internet Archive. Start of the Project Gutenberg ebook. Early German Music in Philadelphia. Publications of the University of Pennsylvania. Americana Germanica. New series monographs devoted to the comparative study of the literary, linguistic, and other cultural relations of Germany and America. Official publication of the Institution of German-American Research. Marion Dexter Learned, Director, University of Pennsylvania. Americana Germanica. New Series 1. Translations of German Poetry in American Magazines 1741 to 1810. By Edward Ziegler Davis, Ph.D. 5 pl. 229 pages. Price $1.65. 2. The Harmony Society. A Chapter in German-American Culture History. By John Archibald Bohl, Ph.D. 3 pp. 176 pages. 30 illustrations. Price $1.50. 3. Friedrich Schiller in America. A Contribution to the Literature of the Poets' Centenary, 1905. By Elwood Comley Perry, Ph.D. 1 pp. 116 pages. Price $1.25. 4. The Influence of Salomon Gessner upon English Literature. By Bertha Reed. 1 pp. 118 pages. Price $1.25. 5. The German Settlement Society of Philadelphia and its Colony, Hermann, Missouri. By William G. Beck. pp. 11, 182 pages. Price $1.50. 6. Philip Waldeck's Diary of the American Revolution. With introduction and photographic reproductions. By M. D. Learned. 168 pages. Price $1.50. 7. Schwenkfelder Hymnology and the Sources of the First Schwenkfelder Hymn Book printed in America. With photographic reproductions. By Alan Anders Seat, Ph.D. 112 pages. Price $2.08. The Settlement of the German Coast of Louisiana and the Creoles of German Descent. By J. Hanno Dieler. 135 pages. Price $1.25. 9. Early German Music in Philadelphia. By R. R. Drummond. 88 pages. Price $1. Early German Music in Philadelphia. Robert Rutherford Drummond, Ph.D. sometime Harrison Fellow in Germanics at the University of Pennsylvania, Instructor in German at the University of Maine. University of Pennsylvania. D. Appleton and Company. Publishing Agents, New York, 1910. Copyrighted by Robert R. Drummond. 1910. Bangor, Maine. Bangor Cooperative Printing Company. 1910. To my parents. Forward. In this book I have sought to give a glimpse of the musical life of Philadelphia during the 18th century, laying especial stress on the secular music, and considering principally the German music produced and performed, and emphasizing the high standard of musical taste at this time. While confining myself to secular music, I thought it necessary in the first period to treat somewhat in detail the religious music, especially as the religious music was of more importance in the first half-century than the secular music. So, too, I have gone into detail somewhat more in the first two periods than in the last, because these periods have not been so thoroughly investigated as the last period has. It may be objected by some, that I have not adequately considered the concert life of the last period. To these I would say that this period has been fully covered by O.G. Sonek in his early concert life in such a manner that I, at least, could not improve upon it. It is hoped that this book may help to correct the false impression, that musical taste in America in the 18th century was an unknown quantity. This study was undertaken at the suggestion of Professor Marion D. Learned, and to him I am especially grateful for aid and encouragement in preparing the work. To O.G. Sonek of the Library of Congress I am greatly indebted not only for material found in his books on early American music, but also for his extreme kindness in placing at my disposal unpublished material. His suggestions and encouragement have been of great help to me. I wish to acknowledge here the courtesy extended to me by the officers and attendants of the Pennsylvania Historical Society and the Library of University of Pennsylvania, and also the aid given to me by various friends. This study was submitted in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, at the University of Pennsylvania, 1909. Robert R. Drummond. Bangor, Me September 1, 1909. Table of Contents. Introduction 1 Part I Beginnings before 1753 Chapter I Hymn Music of Germans in Philadelphia 5 Chapter 2 Church Music and the Manner of its Performance 11 Chapter 3 Secular Music 24 Part 2 Period of Progress, 1750 to 1783, 35 Chapter 4 Music Teachers 37 Chapter V Music Dealers, etc. 40 Chapter 6 Concert Music 45 Part 3 Period of Greatest Development, 1783 to 1800, 55 Chapter 7 Alexander Reinagel 57 Chapter 8 Philip Roth and Philip File 76 Conclusion 84 Appendix List of Reinagel's compositions 85 Introduction The early immigration of Germans to Philadelphia increased to such an extent, that before the middle of the 18th century the English colonists became alarmed for fear that Pennsylvania might be alienated from the English crown, and be dominated by the German immigrants. Indeed, throughout the 18th century the greater part of the German immigrants landed at Philadelphia, and from there were distributed into other states. We should naturally expect, with so great a population of Germans in Philadelphia and the surrounding country, that these people would continually extend their influence, and constantly spread abroad their ideas of art, religion, music, and literature. Let us consider for a moment the condition of the Germans who landed in this country. In 1683, moved by William Penn's alluring proclamations of the glorious New World, as well as by the fact that freedom of conscience was granted in Pennsylvania to all, a band of German immigrants arrived in Philadelphia and founded Germantown. With the exception of the scholar, Francis Daniel Pastorius, there were no highly cultured men or women among them. These people were of the middle class, and were more interested in weaving and agriculture and religious salvation, than in the cultivation of the fine arts. The conditions in Germany were not conducive to culture. The country was just recovering from the 30 Years' War, and the strength of the people was being expended in building up the homes, and improving the land made desolate during that fierce struggle. At this time, too, the German people had little liberty, but rather were under the thumb of absolutism, which was at that time the great force in European countries. It was not an epoch favorable to the cultivation of the fine arts. There was no great literature, no great art, no great music. There was, however, a strong religious spirit, which is often the result of hardship and suffering. It is in the field of religion, too, that we find the best music during the 17th century, although it was not original in style, but simply a continuation of Luther's music. The hymn writers of that time, both Catholic and Protestant, are not to be despised, and we need mention but a few, whose songs have lived even to the present day, as Paul Fleming, 1609–1640, and Paul Gerhardt, 1606–1676, Protestant, Friedrich Spee, 1591–1635, and Johann Scheffer, 1624–1677, Catholics. It can be said, then, with some degree of surety, that the performance of music by the early German settlers in Philadelphia was confined, in the province of music, to hymns. In this department the Germans hold an important position. Not only was their church music an essential part of their services, but the number of hymn writers and the many editions of German hymn books published in Philadelphia testify to the love which these new settlers had for church music. It is only necessary to mention a few of these hymn writers to recall to mind the extreme productiveness of this style of literature and music. Among the most important hymn writers were F. D. Pastorius, of Germantown, Johann Kelpius, of the Wissahickon, Conrad Beissel, of Ephrata, and Count von Zinzendorf, the Moravian. 2 footnotes, 1 Louis Elson, National Music in America, p. 18. 2 cf. For further information on this subject, J. H. Dubbs, Early German Hymnology of Pennsylvania, Hausmann, German-American Hymnology 1683–1800, in Americana Germanica 1898, Volume 2. Number 3, p. 2. Part I. Beginnings before 1750. Chapter I. Hymn Music of Germans in Philadelphia. To Francis Daniel Pastorius has been assigned the honor of being the first German hymn writer on American soil. Pastorius III was born September 26, 1651 at Sommerhausen, Germany, of cultured parents of some means and position in society. His father Melchior Pastorius had studied Catholic theology and also jurisprudence, but had finally renounced his faith and had become a Protestant. Needless to say, Francis Daniel's education was not neglected. He was sent to school in various places, as Winsheim, Basel, Nuremberg, Erfurt, Strasbourg where he studied law and the French language, Jena where besides law he studied Italian, and finally he took his degree of Doctor of Laws at Altdorf, 1676. He settled now at Frankfurt am Main and practiced his profession. He probably continued in this work until 1680, when, as the companion of Johann Bonaventura von Rodeck, he made a journey, extending over 2 years, through Holland, England, France, Switzerland, and Germany. Upon his return to Frankfurt, November, 1682, he became interested in the mysticism of Spener and his companions, and the movement to America which they were promoting filled him with an ardent longing to share in it. So, with the consent of his father who provided him with money, Francis Daniel set sail for America and arrived in Philadelphia August 20, 1683, 6 weeks before the other immigrants landed. Pastorius was the only highly educated man in this colony. He was looked up to by the other colonists for this reason, and also because he was the agent of a land company formed in Germany for the purchase and sale of land in Pennsylvania. The new colonists chose as the spot for their new homesteads a tract of land not far from Philadelphia, where they founded Germanopolis or Germantown. On November 26, 1688, Pastorius married Enoch Klostermans and had 2 sons, whose descendants live at the present day. In 1691, Pastorius was elected to the newly created office of Burgermeister, an office to which he was chosen 3 other times. Besides this office, he was for many years elected to the position of Stadtschreiber, and was also schoolmaster at different times. He was known as a writer of some talent, and composed poems, hymns, epigrams, etc., in Greek, Latin, German, French, Dutch, English and Italian. I will close this bare outline with Pastorius' account of himself as quoted by Sedensticker. Der Verfasser dieses Manuskripts hat ein melancholisch-cholerisches Temperament und ist der, nach Culpeper, sanftmuthig, zu einem nüchternen ingezogenen Leben disponert, wissbegierig, unentschlossen, bescheiden, schüchtern, bedächtig, standhaft, und zuverlässig in seinen Handlungen, langs Amenwitzes, vergislich. Geschieht ihm unrecht, so tragt es nicht nach. This remarkable man died September 27, 1719. Four Pastorius hymns are up to the standard of most hymns written at that time. In point of time, the next hymn writers were the so-called Hermits of Wissahickon, a band of men and women steeped in German mysticism, and having a belief that the end of the world was soon to come and that their one love should be the Lord Jesus Christ, so on this account renouncing marriage as sinful. It was in this wilderness, beside the Wissahickon stream about 8 miles from Philadelphia, that this band of Pietists in the year 1694 took up their abode, and from whence issued the strains of hymns, reminding one, in some instances of love songs rather than praises to God. 5. There were in this congregation a number of men of high culture and lofty aims, such as Johann Kelpius, Henry Bernhard Koster, Johann Gottfried Selig, etc. The most important man was Johann Kelpius, their leader, who composed the greater number of their hymns. 6. Kelpius was the son of a pastor in Dendorf in the Siebenbürgian district of Germany. He studied theology at Altdorf, where he was a pupil and favorite of the learned doctor, Johann Fabricius. Fabricius vertrat, says Sedensticker, die sogenannte Ehrenskoder Friedliebend der Theologie, die von der Bitternfett gegen andere Confessionen absa. Kelpius, anfangs ein strenger Calvinist, griff den Gedanken an ein innerliches Christentum begierig auf und bildet in unter anderen Einflüssen weiter. 7. In 1689, Kelpius obtained his master's degree. In the years following he composed an essay entitled, Scylla Theologica, aliquot exempli patrimiti doctororum, etc. About this time he must have obtained a knowledge of the religion of the mystics, and must also have come under the influence of Jacob Boehm's philosophy, and Spener's theosophy. Such was the man who led the band of hermits, which arrived in Philadelphia, June 23, 1694. His life on the Wissahickon was one of pious contemplation, and striving to follow out his idea of Christianity. He died 1788. The Honorable S.W. Pennypacker has in his possession a hymn book composed by these people, in which some of the hymns are dated 1707. He reports that Kelpius wrote 19 hymns, another writer possibly Koster 13 hymns, and Selig 4 hymns. 9. Not only did these hermits worship God with song, but they undoubtedly accompanied their voices with musical instruments, since we know that they brought the latter with them from London. 10. Also we find Kelpius in one of his letters desiring that 2 clavichords with additional strings might be sent. 11. This simply goes to show that this little band of religious fanatics was not deficient in musical ability, and also that they carefully nurtured their love for music. Gradually these Pietists died or renounced their faith and were received into other religious societies. 12. And in the latter case one may be sure that their musical instruments went with them and were played and listened to with pleasure in a far wider circle than formerly. It is not our purpose to consider in detail the various German hymn writers in Pennsylvania, as the field is far too large, and besides the composers for the most part, were not inhabitants of Philadelphia. There are a few men, however, of sufficient importance to be considered, even though they lie somewhat without our field of operation. Perhaps the most picturesque figure in the history of American music in this century is Conrad Beissel of Ephrata Cloister. He not only evolved a new system of music, but was also the first composer of music in America. He wrote hymns and chorals in 4, 5, 6, and 7 parts, while usually in other congregations the hymns were sung in unison. 13 The first edition of Ephrata hymns was published by Benjamin Franklin, Philadelphia, 1730, while different editions of new hymns appeared in 1732, 1736, 1739, 1754, 1755, 1756, 2 eds, 1762, and 1766. 14 of these hymns, over 1,000, are attributed to Conrad Beissel. Not only did he compose music, but he also wrote the first treatise on harmony in America. 15 Concerning the quality of the music, Dr. J. H. Sachs says, "The peculiar sweetness and weird beauty of the songs of the sisterhood, and the impressive cadence of the chorals and hymns of the combined chorus." 16 Is strikingly seen. Before the end of the century, nearly all the sects of the Pennsylvania Germans had their editions of hymn books, for the most part abridgments of those in use in the mother country. A few sects, however, had men versed in poetry as well as religion, and these helped to swell the hymn books, already in use, with new songs. The Moravians were especially prolific, and under the direction of Count Nikolaus von Zinzendorf, who himself wrote over 130 hymns in this country, produced a work of some importance. No authorized hymn book for the Moravian Church was issued in America during the colonial period, but a small collection printed at Germantown by C. Sauer in 1742, Hertenlieder von Bethlehem, was popular. 17 Zinzendorf was not the only hymn writer among the Moravians, since there were also his 2 wives, his son, Bishop Spangenberg, and others, who had some ability in this line. In speaking of the German-American hymnology, Hausmann remarks that the hymns of all sects were subjective, excepting those of the Moravians. 18 In the 18th century, Philadelphia and Germantown were for a time the only 2 important printing centers of Pennsylvania, and here it was that the greater number of German hymn books were printed. There can be no doubt, I think, that many of these German hymns were known to most of the inhabitants of Philadelphia, but as to whether or not these hymns had any influence upon the people, we are as yet not prepared to say. At this time, we can do no more than enumerate the different editions of German hymn books printed in Philadelphia and vicinity during the 18th century, although we hope that we may later investigate them thoroughly. In 1744 the Brotherhood of the Inspired produced an abridgment of a larger European collection. This became a favorite with the different separatist bodies. It was called Das Kleindavidisch Psalterspiel der Kinder Zions. 19 This book contains 530 pages, and was printed by C. Sauer, Germantown. In 1752 Sauer reprinted the Marburg Reformed Hymn Book, 1753 20 Die Kleinharfe, 21 1762, Marburg edition of the Lutheran Hymn Book 22, and also in this same year the first edition of Schwenkfelder hymns 23, some of which were composed in this country, others taken from the Lutheran and Reformed hymn books, but based, in great part upon the hymn book of the Bohemian Brethren. It contains 917 hymns. 24 In 1763 was printed the Marburg Reformed Hymn Book, 25 in 1786 the earliest original collection of Lutheran hymns in this country, entitled Erbauliche Liedersammlung, 1788 Liebeliche und Erbauliche Lieder, Unparteiische Liedersammlung, and others published by the German Baptist Society. 26 1797 Neues und Verbskurzgesangbuch printed by Steiner and Kammerer, Philadelphia, 1799, a third edition of the Marburg Lutheran Hymn Book. 27 The total number of editions of German hymn books during this century was 22, but besides that there was a German hymn book translated into English in 1795. Footnotes: 3 Hausmann, German-American Hymnology 1683-1800, in Americana Germanica, hereafter, AMGER. 1898, Volume 2, Number 3, p. 2. 4. The material for the sketch was obtained in great part from Seitenstickers, Geschichtsblätter, Bilder aus der Deutsch-Pennsylvanischen Geschichte, pages 34 ff. Also M.D. learned. Life of Francis Daniel Pastorius. 5 cf. Seitensticker. Geschichtsblätter, p. 87 ff. 6s. Penny Packer. Hymn Book of the Hermits of the Wissahickon, Pen Mag of History Volume XXV, p. 338. 7 Seitensticker. Geschichtsblätter p. 91. 8 For the sketch cf. Seitensticker. Geschichtsblätter, pages 91 to 100. 9 Pen Mag of History, Volume XXV, p. 338. 10 cf. Seitensticker, Geschichtsblätter, p. 89. 11 cf. Seitensticker, Geschichtsblätter, p. 100. 12 Seitensticker, Geschichtsblätter, p. 102. 13 Th Sachse, Music of the Ephrata Cloister, p. 29 hereafter, Sachse. 14 America Ger Volume 2, Number 3, p. 19. Dubs, p. 9. 15 Sachse, p. 22. 16 Sachse, p. 29. For further information on this subject consult the works quoted above. 17 Dubs, p. 18 ff. 18 AMGER Volume 2, Number 3, p. 39. 19 Dubs, p. 21. 20 Dubs, p. 25. 21 Dubs, p. 21. 22 Dubs, p. 21. 23 A. Seed. Schwenkfelder Hymnology, Americana Germanica Volume 7. 24 Dubs, p. 16. 25 Dubs, p. 25. 26 Dubs, p. 21. 27 Dubs, p. 25. Chapter 2. Church Music and the Manner of its Performance. It has already been mentioned that there were many German hymn writers in Philadelphia in the early 18th century, and it is now in place to consider what was the quality of the music in the German churches at that period, and whether musical instruments of any kind were used in the Philadelphia churches. For the first record it is necessary to go a little beyond Philadelphia to the hermits of the Wissahickon. To this people undoubtedly belongs the honor of first using instrumental music in religious services. Of their voyage across the Atlantic, Kelpius says, "We had also prayer meetings and sang hymns of praise and joy, several of us accompanying on instruments that we had brought from London." 28 Evidently the instruments which they brought with them were not satisfactory or were regarded as inadequate for the worship of God, as Kelpius in a letter to friends in London asked that 2 clavichords with additional strings might be sent. 29 Again the hermits at the consecration of the new Swedish church Gloria Dei July 2, 1700, act as choristers and furnish instrumental music. 30 The first German minister ordained in this country was Justus Faulkner, who was consecrated by the Swedish Lutherans. In a letter to Reverend Heinrich Mühlen, of Holstein, 1701, Faulkner shows that, even at that early day, music was considered an important adjunct of the church service. He says, "In short, there are Germans here, and perhaps the majority, who despise God's word and all outward good order, who blaspheme the sacraments and frightfully and publicly give scandal. I will here take occasion to mention that many others besides myself, who know the ways of the land, maintain that music would contribute much towards a good Christian service. It would not only attract and civilize the wild Indians, but it would do much good in spreading the gospel truths among the sects and others by attracting them. Instrumental music is especially serviceable here. Thus a well-sounding organ would perhaps prove of great profit, to say nothing of the fact that the Indians would come running from far and near to listen to such unknown melody, and upon that account might become willing to accept our language and teaching, and remain with people who had such agreeable things, for they are said to come ever so far to listen to one who plays even a reed pipe, Rorpif such an extraordinary love have they for any melodious and ringing sound. Now as the melancholy, saturnine stingy Quaker spirit has abolished, relegated, all such music, it would indeed be a novelty here, and tend to attract many of the young people away from the Quakers and sects to attend services where such music was found, even against the wishes of their parents. This would afford a good opportunity to show them the truth and their error. If such an organ instrument, orgel work, were placed in the Swedish church, it would prove of great service to this church. If there were music in the church, the young people would consider church-going a recreation. The Lord of hosts would be praised and honored with cymbal and organ. And it may be assumed that even a small organ instrument and music in this place would be acceptable to God, and prove far more useful than many hundreds in Europe, where there is already a superfluity of such things. There are in Europe masters enough who would build such instruments, and a fine one can be secured for 300 or 400 thalers. Then if an experienced organist and musician could be found, and a curious one, who would undertake so far a journey, he would be very welcome here. In case this could not be, if we only had an organ, some one or other might be found who had knowledge thereof. 31 The writer of this missive was somewhat of a poet himself, and composed several fine hymns, some of which are in use at the present day. 32 Whether the appeal for musical instruments was of avail, we know not, but in the journal of Reverend Andreas Sandell for July 20, 1702, is mentioned one Jonas, organist of Gloria Dei Church. Again, on November 24, 1703, when Faulkner was ordained in this church, Sachse says, the service was opened with a voluntary on the little organ in the gallery by Jonas the organist, supplemented with instrumental music by the mystics on the viol, hautboy, trumpets, posanen, and kettle drums, pauken. 33 The first church organ in Philadelphia, then, was placed in a Swedish Lutheran church largely by means of a German. Although the merit for this achievement must be divided between the Germans and Swedes, in one department of music, the singing of hymns, the Swedes probably were preeminent. In 1696 Charles, King of Sweden, sent to the church at Waikato, 100 hymn books 34, while in 1712 another lot, consisting of 360 hymn books of three sorts, were shipped. 35 The Swedes were strict, too, in the regulations of the church services, especially of singing. In 1702, Reverend Andreas Sandell imposes a fine for untimely singing, 6 shillings. 36 Especially interesting is the account concerning the attempt of Pastor Andreas Hesselius, of Christiana, Delaware, to reform church singing in 1713. Akerlius says, he had special regard to propriety in church singing, in which there was often such discord as though they intended to call their cows to the church. In opposition to which it was represented that as all those who possessed the gift of praising God with a pleasing voice in psalms and hymns should not stand mute, so, on the other hand, those who were unfit for this should not with their harsh voices hinder others and make confusion, but, by softly singing after the others, train themselves to correct singing. During the singing, he went around the church and aided where they failed. 37 It is very probable that in Philadelphia, this same instruction in church singing prevailed, since Hesselius was for some time provost, and had a right to command, and also, because Samuel Hesselius, his brother, occupied the pulpit at Waikato and could more easily be coerced if necessary to establish this method of instruction. In the other churches of Philadelphia, organs seem to have been introduced at a relatively late date. On September 2, 1728, a committee having been appointed at Christ Church to treat with Mr. Laud. See Spro Eagle 38 about an organ lately arrived here, report that they had done the same, and that he insisted on £200 for said organ, and that they had procured men of the best skill this place could afford to erect the said organ in a convenient house in town, to make trial thereof, which, being done, it is said the organ proves good in its kind, and large enough for our church. 39 Upon this recommendation the organ was purchased. In the Moravian Church, corner of Race and Broad Streets, there were 2 organs in 1743, one of which was sold in 1796, and a new one built by David Tannenberger 41 in this same year, 1743. The Moravians in Germantown had an organ costing £60, but in 1744 both church and organ reverted to the German Reformed Church. 42 The Catholic Church had an organ in 1750-43. These are the earliest known organs in use in Philadelphia churches. From this time on, the other churches in the city gradually established them as an aid to their services. One writer, who came to this country from Germany, evidently had no knowledge of these organs when he said, "I came to this country with the first organ 1750 which now stands in a High German Lutheran church in the city of Philadelphia, and which was built in Heilbronn." 44 In the face of the evidence already produced, it is needless to say that this statement is a little off color, to say the least. There were then in Philadelphia several organs before 1755, and it is reasonable to assume that in the Moravian Church, that wind and string instruments were used, since we find this true at the colony in Bethlehem. 45 The testimony of travelers of that time or of members of other churches is of some interest and importance. The first witness is William Black, Secretary of the Commission appointed by the Governor of Virginia to unite with commissions from Maryland and Pennsylvania for the purpose of treating with the Indians. In the year 1744, he resided in Philadelphia, during which time he kept a journal of interest and importance. June 8 he writes, "We went to the Moravian meeting, where I had the pleasure to hear an excellent comment on that passage in Scripture relating to the prodigal son, and after some very agreeable church music, half an hour after 9 they broke up." 46 This testimony is not without its value, as this gentleman was evidently somewhat of a musician himself, since under the same date in his diary we find, "I rose from my bed and passed 2 hours in writing, the rest of the time till breakfast, I spent with my fiddle and flute." 47 Concerning the music in the Moravian Church we have other evidence, at a later date. John Adams remarks in his diary for October 23, 1774, "The singing here Methodist meeting is very sweet and soft indeed, the first music I have heard in any society except the Moravians, and once at church with the organ." 48 He also remarks September 4, 1774, upon the organ and a new choir of singers at Christ Church, which were very musical. 49 Franklin, in 1755, speaks of hearing Moravian music at Bethlehem, and praises it generously. 50 A year earlier Akerlius, who visited the same place, gives a more detailed account in the following words: "It was finally agreed that we should sit below in the auditorium of the church, as the music sounded better there. The organ had the accompaniment of violins and flutes. The musicians were back in the gallery, so that none of them were seen. One of the ministers read some verses of a German hymn book, after which they were sung with excellent music." 51 Their style of music and manner of performing it must have been exceptionally good, as compared with the music of other churches, to have impressed so favorably such men, who, we may be sure, were quite different. There is the sturdy Pastor Akerlius, understanding church music and the manner of its performance, the cordial, genial Ben Franklin, who knew something about music from living in London, the somewhat cold but highly cultured, John Adams, with his Puritan traditions, then the gentleman from Virginia, William Black, who most probably partook of the nature of the warm, sunny-tempered Southerners, himself somewhat of a musician. Could we ask for witnesses more unlike? To the Moravian Church undoubtedly belongs the palm for music during the 18th century, but there was music, and good music, in some other churches as well. We have already mentioned the music in Christ Church and the Methodist Church. Concerning the music in the German Lutheran Church, we have the testimony of Daniel Fischer, who writes in his diary for May 25, 1755, went to the Lutheran Church, a neat brick building where there is a good organ 52 to which I heard them sing psalms, agreeably enough. 53 again he says, the Lutheran Church has an organ, and a good one. 54 there were organs then in the churches, to a great extent, before 1750. The question now arises, were there men who could repair these instruments if they got out of order? By the end of the 5th decade, there were several men who could not only repair an organ, but also build one. Of these men Gustavus Hesselius is the most important, as he was the first spinet builder in America, having produced specimens as early as 1743-55 and probably the first organ builder in Pennsylvania. It is claimed that he was the first organ builder in America, and in support of that claim an organ is mentioned as built by him for the Moravian Church at Bethlehem, PA, in 1746-56. The fact is lost sight of that a Boston man, Edward Bromfield, generally regarded as the first organ builder, constructed an instrument in 1745-57. However, Hesselius was undoubtedly the first man who built many church organs. Still another claimant appears for this title, no less a man than the Englishman, Dr. Christopher Witt, 1675-1765, another hermit of the Wissahickon. Dr. Witt possessed a large pipe organ presumably made by him alone, but possibly aided by other hermits. It was built at least while he was living with the settlement on the Wissahickon, and as he left that society shortly after the death of Kelpius 58, which took place about 1708-59, the evidence is in his favor. This organ at his death was valued at £40-60. Hesselius was not only a musician, but a painter as well. He died in 1755-61. Connected with Hesselius in 1746 was John G. Clem, a native of Dresden, Germany. 3 years later David Tannenberger arrived in Philadelphia, a man whom many of his contemporaries conceded to be the greatest organ builder in America, but, as is usually the case, there is another claimant for this high honor, as will be seen later. David Tannenberger 62 was born March 21, 1728, in Berthelsdorf, Saxony. He was evidently an all-round musician, and could play, sing. He possessed a good voice, build, or repair an organ as occasion presented itself. It is known that he built at least 14 organs during his stay in Pennsylvania, while no record of the number of spinets, which he made and sold for £22.10s, has been discovered. As to Tannenberger's reputation as an organ builder, we have the testimony of a man who probably knew Tannenberger. Tannenberg belongs to history as the organ builder of his day and one of renown. He too, was of the German school. Fancy stops were not generally in vogue, except the trumpet in the great organ, and the vox humana in the swell, of which latter there was but one in the city, and that was in Christ Church, and to my young ear, a good imitation of the human voice. There are several of Tannenberg's organs yet in breathing existence. 1857. Lancaster, Lighties, and Nazareth still hold his memory in audible and respectful tones, and much of his work is worthy of imitation. His diapasons were particularly dignified, whilst his upper work, 12th, 15th, and Sesqui Altera, gave brilliancy to the whole. 63. This testimony of Abraham Ritter, an organist of good standing in the Moravian Church, gives some idea of the excellence of the work and of the reputation which Tannenberger still had in the 19th century. In a letter written from Lancaster, December 24, 1770, the following testimony is added: "Yesterday we had the pleasure of hearing, for the first time, the new organ, in the High Dutch Reformed Church of this place, accompanied with a variety of vocal music, composed on the occasion, which I may venture to say, not only from my own experience, but the approbation of all present, was never equalled in any place of worship in this province, or perhaps upon this continent. The organ was made by Mr. David Tannenberg, of Lighties, a Moravian town not far from this place, and I dare venture to assert, is much superior in workmanship and sweetness of sound, to any made by the late celebrated Mr. Fairing, who was so justly taken notice of for his ingenuity, does great honor to the maker, is worth the attention and notice of the curious, who may happen to pass this way, and will undoubtedly recommend him to all who are desirous of having works of that nature." 64. In spite of his reputation as an organ builder, we learn that in 1790 he was a bankrupt. 65. He died May 19, 1804, stricken by paralysis while tuning an organ at York, PA. 66. We have already spoken of Gottlieb Mittelberger and his organ, and, although we cannot depend upon his statements, there may be some truth in his somewhat exaggerated account of the dedication of his organ. It is at least interesting, and shows that the people as a whole were certainly not prejudiced against music. He says, "After this work had been set up and tuned, it was consecrated with great rejoicing and delivered to the Christian St. Michael's Church for the praise and service of God. The crowd of hearers was indescribably large, many people came from a great distance, 10, 20, 30, 40 and even 50 hours' journey, to see and hear this organ. The number of hearers, who stood inside and outside the church, both German and English, were estimated at several thousands. I was appointed schoolmaster and organist. As I became more and more known in Pennsylvania, and the people learned that I had brought fine and good instruments with me, many English and German families came 10, 20, and 30 hours' journey to hear them and the organ, and they were greatly surprised because they had never in all their lives seen or heard an organ or any of those instruments. 67. At the present time 1754. There are 6 organs in Pennsylvania. The first is in Philadelphia, the second in Germantown, the third in Providence, the fourth in New Hanover, the fifth in Dulpachen. All of them came to this country during the 4 years of my sojourn there. 68. The statement concerning the number of organs in Philadelphia cannot be true, as we have shown above that there were several. In his list of the organs in Pennsylvania, he neglects to mention the one made for the Moravian Church at Bethlehem in 1746. 69. The number of people which he claims was present at the dedication is probably exaggerated, and, as Mittelberger was the chief performer, we can pardon him the slip of the pen. It is probable, however, that there was a large number of people present, as there would be at any new event entering into their narrow lives, especially as there was no charge for admission. In 1762 a new organ was built in Philadelphia by Philip Fairing for St. Paul's Church. He is the other claimant to the honor of being the greatest organ builder of his day. 71 of the newspapers was evidently partial to him, since it gives this notice: "The new organ, which is putting up in St. Paul's Church in the city, will be in such forwardness as to be used in divine service on Christmas Day. It is of a new construction, and made by Mr. Philip Fairing, 71, musical instrument maker, in this city, who may, with justice, be said to be the best hand at that ingenious business on the continent. 72 The organ was evidently in use on Christmas Day and must have proven satisfactory to call forth the following poem lauding both Fearing and his organ. On hearing the organ at St. Paul's Church, on Christmas Day, 1762. Hail heaven-born science, whose enlivening touch, through nature felt, makes all her powers rejoice, and fills the soul with harmony, and bliss ecstatic when joy tumultuous revels in the swelling breast. Then thou, sweet music, majestically smooth, and soft as zephyrs, the voice assuasive to the heart apleased. If jarring passions, like disgorging Etna, wage war intestine, and with rage destroy then Mother Nature, instant at thy call they lose their fury, and subside in peace. A sovereign balm thou pour st into the wounds of bleeding love, and soothe st the heartfelt pain. And thou, majestic organ, taught by thee, we raise our thoughts on fancy's wing, soaring beyond the darksome veil of time up to the empyreal heaven, where Godhead habits, high-throned above all height, encircled round by seraphims, whose well-instructed choirs to pleasing numbers tune their harps of gold. Surely if aught of heaven on earth we taste, 'tis when we join in holy acclamation with deep-toned organ, to rehearse the praise of God omnipotent, who rules the heavens, when every swelling note bears us enraptured to the blessed abodes of saints imparadised. When God his 6 days' work, a world had finished attended by a band of heavenly music, the harp symphonious, and the solemn pipe the dulcimer, all organs of sweet stop, along the starry pavement up he rode, while instant nature heard the song harmonious, and listening planets ceased to fill their orbs. While harmony divine knows to control the boisterous passions of the human soul, whilst organs dulcet notes the breast inspire. With true devotion, and a sacred fire, thy name offering thy deserving name shall shine conspicuous in the roll of fame, ages to come, and men in future days shall grateful pay their tribute to thy praise. CWP Mr. Fearing is a German by birth, but has for some years past, practiced the making of musical instruments, particularly spinets and harpsichords, in this city, with great repute. 73 This effusion explains itself. His workmanship must have been of superior quality, as it was seldom that a musician at that time or even at the present day was much noticed, let alone publishing a poem about him. How many instruments were sold by these organ makers it would be difficult to say, although undoubtedly parlor organs were found in many houses. There are advertisements of 2 organs for sale among a list of household goods before the end of 1750, a small organ belonging to Benj Morgan, 1748-74, and a large one, the property of the late Peter Cook, in 1750-75. Religious music in this half-century was flourishing, and was considered a valuable adjunct of the church service, not only in German churches, but also in the Swedish and English churches. The composition of hymns up to this time seems to have been confined to the Germans. Footnotes: 28 Sachse, German Pietists, p. 22, Sedensticker, Geschichtsblätter, p. 100. 29 Sedensticker, Geschichtsblätter, p. 100. 30 Sachse, German Pietists, p. 144, hereafter quoted as G.P. 31 Cf. The Missive of Justice Faulkner of Germantown, concerning the religious condition of PA in the year 1701. Translated by J. F. Sachse. Found also in PA Mag of History, 1897. 32 Sachse, Justice Faulkner, pages 20-21. 33 Justice Faulkner, p. 64, also G.P., pages 354-5. Sachse believes this organ was one brought over by Kelpius. 34 Israel Akerlius, A History of New Sweden, Trans. By W. M. Reynolds, in Memoirs of P.A. History SOC, Volume 11, pages 197, 366, hereafter quoted as Akerlius. 35 Akerlius, p. 367, also Andreas Sandel's diary, in P.A. Mag History 1906, p. 446. 36 Akerlius, p. 217. 37 Akerlius, p. 276. 38 Ludovic Christian Sproegel was one of the hermits of the Wissahickon. 39 Quoted from the Minutes of the Vestry of Christ Church, by Benjdor, History of Christ Church, p. 61. 40 Madeira, Annals of Music in Philadelphia, p. 24. 41 Madeira, Annals of Music in Philadelphia, p. 24, hereafter quoted as Madeira. 42 Minutes and Letters of the Coitus of the German Reformed Church, p. 29. 43 Madeira, p. 24. 44 Gottlieb Mittelbucher's Journey to Penn in the year 1750, translated by Carl T. Eben, p. 114. 45 W. M. Reichel, Something About Trombones, p. 4ff. See also the statement concerning Justice Faulkner's ordination as quoted above, where musical instruments of this character were used. 46 Penn Mag of History, Volume 2, p. 43. 47 Penn Mag of History Volume 2, p. 40. 48 John Adams Works, Volume 2, pages 401 and 364. 49 John Adams Works, Volume 2, pages 401 and 364. 50 Franklin, Autobiography, p. 325 Lippincott, Philadelphia, 1868. 51 Akerlius, p. 413. 52 The organ Mittelbucher brought from Heilbronn, see above. 53 Penn Mag of History, Volume 17, p. 267. 54 Penn Mag of History, Volume 17, p. 272. 55 Penn Mag of History, Volume 16, p. 473, note, 56 Penn Mag of History, Volume XXIX, p. 131 ff, also Reichel, p. 4. 57 L. Elson, History of American Music, p. 43. 58 German Pietists, pages 403, 412. 59 German Pietists, p. 192. 60 German Pietists, p. 418, note. 61 Penn Mag of History, Volume 12, p. 503, note. 62 Spelled also Tannenberg. 63 Abraham Ritter, History of the Moravian Church in Philadelphia. 1857, p. 59 ff, note. 64 Piegas January 10, 1771. 65 General ADV October 28, 1790. 66 Penn Mag of History, Volume XXII, p. 231 ff. 67 This statement is utterly false, as it will be shown later that there were musical instruments in Philadelphia long before this time, and even concerts in 1740. 68 Mittelbucher's Journey to Penn, p. 114. 69 cf. above, p. 17. 70 cf. above, p. 18. 71 Spelled also Fairing. 72 Piegas, December 23, 1762. 73 Piegas, December 30, 1762. 74 PA Journal, July 7, 1748. 75 PA Journal, January 2, 1750. Chapter 3. Secular Music. From the preceding chapter it has been clearly seen, that the Germans in Philadelphia, and indeed in the whole state, were strongly religious, and were celebrated for their church music and instrument makers, especially for their organ builders. Were all the people in Philadelphia as religious as the Germans and Quakers seem to have been, and were there no public amusements? This is an important question, and one not easily answered, especially during the first half of the 18th century. It may be thought that this question is not related to German music, but indirectly it is, so that it may be shown whether or not the people of Philadelphia were ready to welcome music, whether they were in a state of mind favorable to the introduction of any amusements. It is necessary to establish these facts before we can clearly understand the reasons and cause for the introduction of German concert music into America. We know, that in Philadelphia during the 18th century, there were men of every creed and religion, of every walk of life, of many different nationalities, and we may be sure that in such a conglomeration of men and ideas there would be some to whom amusements would be necessary, even amusements which straight-laced people would condemn. The information there is upon this subject supports the opinion, that there were amusements even in the early part of the 18th century. Foremost among the pleasures in which the inhabitants of Philadelphia indulged, was dancing, and we have reference to this art at an early period. In a book written in 1710 is the following statement: "Among the rest of my friends, I must not forget the facetious Mr. Staples, dancing master, who was the first stranger of Philadelphia that did me the honor of a visit." 76 As early as 1716 we find this record: "At the yearly meeting of the Friends, members were advised against going to or being in any way concerned in plays, games, lotteries, music, and dancing." 77 Throughout the first half of the 18th century dancing was evidently held in due respect by a certain element of the population. In 1728 it forms a part of the curriculum of a boarding school. 78 In 1730 dancing is taught by Thomas Ball's sister. 79 The first really fashionable ball was probably that given by Governor Gordon, in 1726, in honor of the Prince of Wales' birthday. 80 To some extent, too, music and dancing were surely a part of the marriage festivities, as the following item shows. We hear that Tuesday night last, a young Dutchman was married to an old Dutch woman, who was known to have money. They had a fiddle at the wedding. She danced till it was late. 81 We find ministers of different denominations complaining of the irreligion of some of the inhabitants. As one writer remarks, we live in an age, when 'tis counted almost a scandal to be a Christian. Religion is stilled preciseness and hypocrisy, and a strict conformity to truth and virtue is imputed to be the effect of melancholy, a distempered imagination. We daily hear the greatest mysteries of our faith ridiculed and bantered, the clergy despised, exposed, and degraded, and that even by men, who have not yet publicly renounced Christianity, but such as would be thought to have clearer heads, and more refined conceptions of things than their brethren. Those men to their shame stand pelting religion at a distance, with little scoffs and jests, when there is a more fair and honorable way of deciding the matter, by rational and undeniable arguments. 82 In opposition to this we have the testimony of Benjamin Franklin, who writes, "Our people, having no public amusements to divert their attention from study, became better acquainted with books." 83 So, too, a correspondent in the Weekly Mercury writes, "Here are no masquerades, plays, balls, midnight revellings, or assemblies to debauch the mind or promote intrigue." 84 When, however, we read an advertisement in the same paper about a month later like the following, we may be permitted to doubt somewhat the statements of the last two men. The art of dancing carefully taught, as it is now practiced at court, by Samuel Perpointment, at his school, where for the recreation of all gentlemen and ladies, there will be country dances every Thursday evening, likewise he teaches small sword. 85 From this time on, we notice the advertisements of various dancing masters, who, often were schoolmasters at the same time. Not only did these Philadelphians enjoy dancing, but they were partial to late suppers and card playing as well. Playing cards was a staple article of importation after 1736-86. Another favorite amusement, we may be sure, was playing on the Jew's harp, for after 1733, this instrument frequently is advertised. 87 The Jew's harp must have been considered a harmless instrument by all sects, for as early as 1675 in one state of Puritan New England it is stated that a law was enacted, that no one should play on any kind of music except the drum, the trumpet, and the Jew's harp. 88 Besides the amusements already mentioned, the Philadelphians had an opportunity to see a rope dancer in 1724. 89 Punch and Joan his wife, 90 Magic Lantern Exhibition, 91 Camera Obscura and Microscope, 92 A musical clock with a man and woman appearing as mountebanks. 93 Music was evidently popular at society meetings, banquets, etc. Perhaps there was nothing more than singing, but possibly a violin and spinet helped to while away the time. For instance, in 1731 at the celebration of St. David's Day, by the Society of Ancient Britons, the evening ended with music, mirth and friendship. 94 In the two items which will be given now, may be detected, perhaps, the incipient germs of musical criticism, or at least the idea, which most people probably had of what a professor of music should know and be able to do. Elocution is not unlike music, there is scarce a soul so rustic as not to admire both in their excellency, although the masters of those sciences may lose their proper share of the praise. He that having laid before him the several parts of a musical instrument, can unite them in their places, and tune them to harmony, merits the appellation of a master in music and should be distinguished as such, as he that disposes words into grammatical sentences, and eloquent periods, is a master of language. 95 This quotation may argue for the popularity and respect in which music was held at that time by at least some of the people. We find in this crude statement, that music was thought worthy of a position by the side of elocution, which has always held a high place in the minds of every people, and so we may be safe in believing that music had a place, and an important place, in Philadelphia, in the early history of that city. Another correspondent states that, women, like instruments of music, require to be long used before their sweetness or discord are certainly discovered. 96 Unless the writer of the above knew something about music, and unless music was an object of interest or pleasure, so that this comparison would be appreciated, he would not likely have ventured to use such a simile. In 1733 there is a record of a ball. 97 While, in the next year under the heading London News, there is a notice concerning the marriage of the Princess Royal to the Prince of Orange, which gives the following information: a fine anthem composed by Mr. Handel was performed by a great number of voices and instruments. 98 This latter item proves nothing except that the name of Handel was introduced into the colonies at an early date, and may have remained in the memories of some of the people, since he was connected with such an important event. This may possibly have helped to increase the popularity which his works, later in the century, attained in America. It has been seen that there was music and dancing at this time, and it is now interesting to learn what kind of musical instruments were used. It has been shown already, that there were Jews' harps 99, that Kelpius had clavichords 100, and assuredly there were some virginals, although probably few. In the 5th decade the various instrument makers mentioned above 101 probably had quite a number of customers. In 1729 Andrew Bradford, proprietor of the American Weekly Mercury, advertises, a well-strung virginal to be sold, being in good order. Inquire of printer hereof. 102 Dr. Christopher Witt, referred to before 103, was a capable player on the virginal 104, which at his death was appraised at £1, 15s 105, while a virginal belonging to the hermits reverted to the widow of Magister Zimmermann 106. The people who owned instruments of this kind had an opportunity to learn to play, since in 1730 a woman, the first music teacher in Philadelphia, makes an announcement in the newspaper as follows: Thomas Ball's wife teaches writing and French. Likewise singing, playing on the spinet, dancing and all sorts of needlework are taught by his sister lately arrived from London. 107 What class of music she and her pupils played, it would be hard to say, but it did not cause anyone to start a music store, and it is not until 1739 that any great musical works are advertised at the office of the man of many parts, Benjamin Franklin. The following pieces were to be obtained there: Corelli sonatas, Geminianese concertos, ditto solos. 108 Besides spinets and virginals there were probably violins, German flutes, trumpets, drums, a few viols, etc. For instance, in 1749 Anthony Lamb, of New York, advertises among other things, German flutes, 109, while other men advertise, in 1750, hunting pipes, 110, and fiddle strings. 111 From 1744 on numerous advertisements of drums appear. Before 1740 there is no record of any kind of musical organization, but in this year there was such a society. During this year the evangelist, Whitefield, visited Philadelphia and made a strong impression upon people of all beliefs. One of his disciples caused this to be printed: since Mr. Whitefield's preaching here, the dancing school, assembly, and concert room have been shut up, as inconsistent with the doctrine of the gospel, and though the gentleman concerned caused the door to be broke open again, we are informed that no company came to the last assembly night. 112 One of the members, however, denied the charge that dances were inconsistent with the doctrine of the gospel, and affirmed that the hall was closed up by William Seward, an attendant and intimate companion of Whitefield. This same writer speaks of members of the concert and the rooms belonging to them. He also says that the members met the night after according to custom, and the Thursday following the company met to dance as they used to do, but the assembly being only for the winter season is now discontinued of course, and the concert being for the whole year still goes on as usual. 113 This is interesting, as it is the first record of concerts, and also, because these concerts continued the whole year, not merely during the winter months as nowadays. There were members of the concert, too, who rented or owned rooms. There must then have been some kind of a club or society, which gave these performances. These concerts must either have been kept up for years, or new series instituted year by year, since our friend William Black, already quoted, says in his diary of 1744, June 5, at 8 o'clock went to hear a concert of music, the performers was some town's gentleman, and did us the honor of an invitation, we stayed till past 11, and I left the company to go home to my lodgings. 114 It is important to observe, that William Black says he had the honor to be invited to a concert. One might say that this word was simply a common expression. It probably was, and still is, but we believe a man would hardly write such an expression in his diary, unless he really thought he was honored. It seems probable that this concert and those of 1740 must have been very exclusive and were not public entertainments, which anyone might attend. There was exhibited this same year, 1744, a curiosity, which would attract a large crowd of people. This was no less than the unparalleled musical clock, made by that great master of machinery, David Lockwood. It excels all others in the beauty of its structure and plays the choicest airs from the most celebrated operas with the greatest nicety and exactness. It performs with beautiful graces, ingeniously and variously intermixed, the French horn, pieces, performed upon the organ, German and common flute, flageolet, etc., sonatas, concertos, marches, minuets, jigs and Scots airs, composed by Corelli, Alberani, Mr. Handel, and other great and eminent masters of music. 115 This is the first public record we have, that works of such famous composers were played, and they must have become familiar, in a short time to a great number of inhabitants. It will be remembered that Miss Ball's capabilities in the province of music were confined to but two branches, voice and spinet. In 1749, however, appears a truly musical genius, if we may judge by the number of instruments which he played. This man was, as we learn from the following, John Beals, music master from London, who at his house in 4th Street, near Chestnut Street, joining to Mr. Linton's, collar maker, teaches the violin, hautboy, German flute, common flute, and dulcimer by note. Said Beals will likewise attend young ladies, or others, that may desire it, at their houses. He likewise provides music for balls or other entertainments. 116 Here was an opportunity for the inhabitants of the Quaker city to improve their time by learning music, and as the variety of instruments from which they might choose, was large, no doubt some of them became proficient musicians. This same year saw the beginnings of drama and opera in Philadelphia, given by the English actors, Murray and Keene. 117 These dramatic performances were soon discontinued on account of the opposition of the public. From now until the latter part of the 6th decade of the 18th century there were desultory attempts to give dramas, but not until 1759 did the theatre prove successful and become permanent. There was then in this decade an incipient appreciation of drama to which some music was oftentimes joined. What other music was there at this time? In 1754 Middlebager says, the cultivation of music is rather rare as yet. Some Englishmen give occasional concerts in private houses with a spinet or harpsichord. 118 Middlebager's statement concerning the cultivation of music is not quite true. Music undoubtedly was studied a great deal more than Middlebager seems to think. If his statement that occasional private concerts were given by Englishmen is true, this was probably the kind of concert William Black attended in 1749-119 and may have been similar to the concerts of 1740-120 during the first half of the 18th century. Philadelphia was not so utterly devoid of musical culture as some of our historians of music would have us believe. The music was not entirely church music, and although musical culture was not so important a factor in the life of the people as at the present day, still music was beginning to make itself felt among intelligent people, and interest in it and appreciation of it were gradually growing. Footnotes, 76 Hart, American History Told by Contemporaries 2, p. 77, quoted from The Voyage, Shipwreck, and Miraculous Escape of Richard Castleman, Gent., appended to The Voyages and Adventures of Captain Robert Boyle, London, 1726, 4th ed. 1786, p. 331. 77 Scharf and Westcott, History of Philadelphia, Volume 2, p. 863. 78 American Weekly Mercury, March 5 to 14, 1727-8. 79 PA Gazette, March 5 to 13, 1729-30. 80 Scharf and Westcott, History of Philadelphia, Volume I, p. 203. 81 PA Gaz, March 15 to 22, 1738 to 9. 82 American Weekly Mercury, June 19 to 26, 1729 A correspondent. 83 Autobiography, p. 207. 84 American Weekly Mercury, June 19 to 26, 1729. 85 American Weekly Mercury, July 31 to August 7, 1729. 86 American Weekly Mercury, February 8, 1736 first advertised. 87 American Weekly Mercury, March 2, 1733 first advertised. 88 Perkins and Dwight, History of Handel and Haydn Society, p. 17, note. 89 Scharf and Westcott, Volume 2, p. 863. 90 PA Gaz, December 30, 1742. 91 PA Gaz, January 27, 1743. 92 PA Gaz, July 2, 1744. 93 PA Gaz, May 31, 1744. 94 PA Gaz, February 23 to March 4, 1730 to 31. 95 American Weekly Mercury, August 7 to 14, 1729. 96 American Weekly Mercury, September 10 to 17, 1730. 97 American Weekly Mercury, November 11, 1733. 98 American Weekly Mercury, May 23, 1734. 99 Vide above, p. 26. 100 Vide above, p. 11. 101 Vide above, p. 17 ff 102 American Weekly Mercury, March 4 to 13, 1728 to 9. 103 see above p. 18. 104 German Pietists, p. 412. 105 German Pietists, p. 418, note. 106 Justice Faulkner, p. 64, note. 107 PA Gaz, July 2 to 9, 1730. 108 PA Gaz, June 15 to 22, 1738 to 9. 109 PA Gaz, January 31, 1749. 110 PA Journal, January 9, 1750. 111 PA Jour and also PA Gaz, May 24, 1750. 112 PA Gazette, May 1, 1740. 113 PA Gaz, May 8, 1740. 114 Pen Mag of History, Volume I, p. 416. 115 PA Gaz, July 12, 1744. 116 PA Gaz, March 21, 1749. 117 Madeira, Annals of Music, p. 29. 118 Middlebager's Journey, p. 114 ff 119 cf above, p. 31. 120 cf above, p. 30. Part 2 Period of Progress, 1750 to 1783. Chapter 4. Music Teachers. From the preceding chapters it will be evident that secular music was beginning to be a force in the life of the people, although the religious music certainly in the first half of the 18th century was more prominent. From 1750 on, however, secular music gradually but surely replaces religious music to a great extent, and becomes to all intents and purposes the noticeable feature of the musical life of Philadelphia. The introduction of German concert music, strange to say, evidently was not due to Germans, although the various German teachers of music may later have aided in popularizing the music of their native land. Too much credit cannot be given to the different music teachers from England, who inaugurated public concerts in Philadelphia, where the works of the greatest artists of Germany, England, and Italy were produced. As early as 1729–121 a music teacher appeared in Philadelphia, while in 1749–122 another member of the profession advertises for pupils. From now on this class of men increases, but there is noticeable lack of teachers with German names. The greater part of these men were English, a few French, Italians, and Germans being present also. In 1755 appears an unique advertisement showing that some of the German music teachers were not dependent upon music alone for a livelihood. The subscriber proposes to open a school on Monday next, in the house where the late Mr. Quinn 123 formerly dwelt, for the instruction of gentlemen and ladies, in the following accomplishments: first, the French, Italian, and German languages, in a method concise and easy. Secondly, to play on the violin after the Italian manner, with a peculiar method of bowing and shifting in solos or concertos. Thirdly, drawing and miniature painting with colors, flowers, insects, etc. Likewise to draw patterns for embroidery, or any kind of needlework. He has a variety of music, composed by the most eminent masters, for the violino solo, concembalo et violoncello, to be disposed of on easy terms. John Matthias Kramer. 124. 5 years later another accomplished German music teacher appeared upon the scene, whose modest advertisement is a relief after reading the previous effusion. This man confines himself to the German flute, which seems to have been an instrument of some importance at that period. This notice runs as follows: this is to inform the public, that an evening school for teaching young gentlemen to play upon the German flute will be opened by the subscriber, where young gentlemen may be taught, by an easy and regular method, to play with judgment and taste, for the moderate price of 6 shillings per week, and 30 shillings entrance money, provided the subscriber can procure 6 scholars. The hours of attendance will be every evening, Sundays excepted, from 6 to 8 o'clock. Said subscriber will also attend gentlemen at their houses, 1 hour every other day, for 1 guinea per month and 30 shillings entrance. John Stadler. N.B. If any gentleman is desirous to know the character and abilities of said subscriber as a teacher of music, they may be satisfied by inquiring of any gentleman in the city, who is a judge of these matters. 125. It is to be noted that Stadler opened a school for his instrument, which emphasizes the popularity which this instrument must have enjoyed. 2 years later another German flutist, George Eisenberg, or D. Eisenberg 126, increased the force of teachers in Philadelphia. Again we find in 1774 Peter Kalkofer advertising to teach the beloved German flute as well as the Latin tongue. 127. Probably the most important of these German musicians was H. B. Victor, who went from Germany to London, in 1759–128, and whose advertisement appears in 1774, an advertisement worthy to be placed alongside of some of those of the present day. He seems to have been an inventor of musical instruments as well. The number of instruments he plays at once, remind us of some of the street musicians of the present day. Mr. Victor, musician to Her late Royal Highness the Princess of Wales, an organist at St. George's in London, lately arrived here, takes this method of acquainting the musical gentry in general, that he gives instructions on the harpsichord, or forte piano, violin, German flute, etc., especially in the thorough bass both in theory and practice, for that his pupils may soon come to a fundamental knowledge of that fine science. N.B. Mr. Victor intended to give a concert, and to perform on his new musical instruments, but is obliged to postpone it for want of able hands, the one he calls trombadopia con tympana, on which he plays the first and second trumpet and a pair of annexed kettle drums with the feet all at once, the other is called cymbalin d'amour, which resembles the musical glasses played by harpsichord keys, never subject to come out of tune, both of his own invention. He is to be met with at his house in Callowhill Street near Water Street. 129. According to this advertisement, Victor must have been a whole conservatory of music in himself. However, he was a musician of some note in our early history, and as such is worthy a place here. As would be expected, the remainder of this period brings no new teachers to notice, as the colonies were busied with far more important matters. Footnotes, 121 see above, p. 29. 122 see above, p. 32. 123 Mr. Quinn was a dancing master, and his room is advertised for rent in P.A. Gaz, September 11, 1755. 124 P.A. Gaz, November 6, 1755. 125 P.A. Gaz, August 27, 1761. 126 P.A. Gaz, May 15, 1763. 127 P.A. Jour, June 8, 1774. 128 Sonic, Early Secular America Music, p. 193. 129 P.A. Packet, October 17, 1774. Chapter V. Music Dealers, etc. To supply the needs of his pupils, it is necessary for a music teacher either to carry a line of musical wares himself or to satisfy his wants from a merchant dealing in such things. For some time it is quite likely that each teacher imported his own musical merchandise, although it has already been noted that, at an early date, Benj Franklin had some music on sale. 130 As in every business there is someone ready to grasp an opportunity, so in the music business a man stepped forward to relieve the teachers of buying and selling. This man was Michael Hillegas, who in 1759 opened, what may be called, the first real music store in Philadelphia. A glance at the following advertisement will not belie this claim. To be sold by Mitchell Hillegas, at his house in 2nd Street, opposite Samuel Morris, Esq., an extraordinary good and neat harpsichord with 4 stops, a good violoncello, an assortment of English and Italian violins, as well common ones, as double-lined, of which some extraordinary, a parcel of good German flutes, imported here from Italy. Also imported in the last ships from London, a large assortment of music, of the best masters, viz., solos, overtures, concertos, sonatas, and duets, for violins, German flutes, hautboys, French horns, violoncellos, and guitars, voluntaries, lessons for organs and harpsichords, ruled paper of various sorts for music, and music books, tutors or books of instructions to learn to play on the violin, German flute, hautboy or common flute, without a master, song books, cantatas, songs on sheets, and a choice parcel of violin strings, etc. 131 From this advertisement may be deduced many things. In the first place, such an inventory of stock would not be sneered at by a music dealer of the present day. We may be sure then that the people were musical and that there was a demand for the things advertised. We should suppose that violins and German flutes were the most popular instruments and were in great demand, while there was certainly more than one player, perhaps many of the above, common flute, French horn, cello, and guitar, and of course there were organists and harpsichord players. Thus we are certain, that, in a few years that the people must have progressed rapidly in music, and probably now it was considered a necessary part of every young lady's and young gentleman's education. Music paper, too, is advertised by Hillegas. This may have been used in copying compositions of other writers, as we know Hopkinson did 132, or, perhaps, there were composers at that time of whom there is no record. The songbooks, cantatas, and songs imported would be those in favor in London, as musical taste at this period in Philadelphia was a reflection of English taste. The name of Michael Hillegas will live as long as the United States hold together, as he was an important figure in the early history of our country. Michael Hillegas 133 was born April 22, OS. in Philadelphia of German parents. The tradition runs in the Hillegas family that their ancestors were French. They had a coat of arms containing 3 musical staves. However that may be, Michael's parents came from Baden and settled in Philadelphia, where Michael Sr. was naturalized April 11, 1749. He was a merchant, and was interested in real estate and prospered exceedingly. At his death October 11, 1749, his property was valued at £40,000, of which his son Michael had 2 shares. Michael Jr. now carried on the business of his father. He was popular, devoted to music and a skillful player on the flute and violin, and a composer of an easy method for the flute. 134 As early as 1753, he advertises a church or house organ. 135 Politically he was important, held various offices in Philadelphia, and upon the adoption of the Constitution became treasurer, the first treasurer of the United States, an office which he held throughout the war. 136 Such in brief was the man who kept the first store of musical merchandise. His influence in musical matters must have been felt, although it cannot be proven. That he had good musical taste or that the public did is seen from the list of standard works which he advertised in 1764. 137 including those of Tartini, Hasse, Nosri, Alberti, Vincent, Carter, Miller, Ballycourt, Tessarana, Reed, Stanley, Viesi, Servetto, Davis, Quantz, Martini, Wiedemann, Hellendahl, Pepusch, Tremer, Wadiska, Corelli, Depuis, Avison, Humphreys, Alcock, Festnig, Handel, Vivaldi, Boyce, Ruga, Price, Burney, Fisher, Farrago, Flaxton, Bates, Ritzel, Bainigetter, Bazizi, Albinoni, Groun, Stamitz, Fritz, Barbella, Richter, Claint, Lampunini, Pasquale, M. Gibbon, Dottle, Gerard, Stequay, Battino, Campioni, Cloget, Excel, Figlio, Dirigini, Lanzetti, Kuhnsen, Scarlatti, Smith-Schmidt, Barband, Berg. This is a list of names of composers which, at that time, were popular and some of which hold an important place in the musical world of today. Although Michael Hillegas, probably for some time, had almost a monopoly of the selling of musical merchandise, it was not long before another firm usurped the position which Hillegas had held in the musical world, and apparently crowded him out of business, as his advertisements, after a short time, are few and gradually cease altogether. The music house par excellence which now came to the front was that of the English booksellers, Rivington and Brown, who carried a remarkably large stock of musical merchandise. 138 However, we are only concerned with those storekeepers of German descent, so we will have to pass by this large and prosperous establishment. Soon after this Theodore Memminger, a liquor dealer, advertises a fine parcel of violins, at a very low price. They are all made by the best masters in High Germany. He has likewise the best sort of fiddle strings. 139 In 1768 he seems to have increased his music business, as the following notice shows: a variety of violins at different prices, the best kind of fresh fiddle strings, guitar and spinet brass and steel wire, a fine pair of very good ivory German flutes. He spins all sorts of bass strings with silver wire. 140 Most of this business seems to have been in the hands of the English, for with the exception of one more German, Conrad Battis, who advertises among other things a quantity of violins and violin strings, 141 no other German music dealer has been discovered. There is, however, one more event of importance to chronicle, before leaving the music dealers. It has been already stated that harpsichords and spinets were made in Philadelphia at an early period. It remained for John Birant, a German, to add to the renown of Philadelphia in the realm of music. In 1775 he advertised, "John Birant, joiner and instrument maker living in 3rd Street, continued in Campington, directly opposite Coates Burying Ground, has just finished for sale, an extraordinary fine instrument, by the name of piano forte, of mahogany, in the manner of an harpsichord, with hammers, and several changes. He intends to dispose of it on very reasonable terms, and being a master of such sort of work, and a new beginner in this country, he requests all lovers of music to favor him with their custom, and they shall not only be honestly served, but their favors gratefully acknowledged, by their humble servant, John Birant." 142 Evidently the War of the Revolution interrupted any further progress in musical development, as nothing more of importance is found during this period. Footnotes: 130 see above, p. 29. 131 Pa Gaz, December 13, 1759. 132 see below, p. 48. 133 Oldest reliable spelling is Hildegraw. 134 Advertised in Pa Gaz, June 19, 1776. 135 Pa Gaz, August 9, 1753. 136 Material for the sketch taken from Michael Hillegas and His Descendants by Emma St. Clair Whitney, also, a memoir of the first Treasurer of the U.S., by M. R. Minnick. 137 Pa Gaz, January 5, 1764. 138 Cf. Pa Gaz, February 4, 1762, also Pa Jour, December 15, 1763. 139 Pa Gaz, November 10, 1763. 140 Pa Jour, November 17, 1768. 141 Pa Gaz, February 17, 1773. 142 Pa Pack, March 13, 1775. Chapter 6. Concert Music. In a previous chapter it was shown that a kind of subscription concert was given as early as 1744, and although there is no record of public or private concerts being given for some time after that, it is only natural to suppose that at least private chamber concerts were given. We may be sure that bands were a feature at an early date, and no doubt added somewhat to the musical life of Philadelphia. It is not until 1755, however, that there is any mention of such an organization. However, in that year we learn that a band of music headed a procession of Masons on St. John's Day 143. How important this procession was considered by the onlookers is seen from the testimony of Daniel Fisher, who writes in his diary, "I should observe that on St. John the Baptist Day, June 24, there was the greatest procession of Freemasons to the church and their lodge, in 2nd Street that was ever seen in America. No less than 160 being in the procession in gloves, aprons, etc., attended by a band of music. 144 This band probably was not like those of the present time, but may have been satisfactory to the inhabitants of old Philadelphia. We may assume it was similar to a drum and fife corps, although this assumption may do injustice to the musical taste of that time. Anyway, we have the year following a more detailed description of a procession including music. The Philadelphia Regiment, consisting of upwards of 1,000 able-bodied men, after being reviewed and performing the manual exercises, went through the town in 3 grand divisions, with hautboys and fifes in ranks, and drums between the 3rd and 4th ranks. 145 This is certainly a small beginning, but the band had come to stay and apparently was popular, and probably was used in most processions and public celebrations. After the victory at Louisburg, fireworks were displayed in Philadelphia and a performance of a band of music playing Britain's Strike Home. 146 At a later date, bands of the British regiments stationed in Philadelphia aided at the public commencements of the college and charity school. 147 Now the University of Pennsylvania. The year 1757 is very important in the history of music in Philadelphia. We have now the first public concerts on record, says O.G. Sonic. 148 The advertisement runs, by particular desire. On Tuesday next, the 25th instant, at the Assembly Room, in Lodge Alley, will be performed a concert of music, under the direction of Mr. John Palma. 149 To begin exactly at 6 o'clock. Tickets to be had at the London Coffee House, at $1 each, and no person to be admitted without a ticket. 150 Another concert was given March 25 of this same year. 151 This year, too, a man appears in musical circles, who undoubtedly exercised more influence upon musical affairs in Philadelphia than any one man before or since. This is no other than Francis Hopkinson, statesman, signer of the Declaration of Independence, lawyer, writer, inventor, composer of music, etc., etc. His contributions to the music and musical taste of this country is little known, but when we say that the evidence points to him as the first native composer in America, although Jas Leon of the city may have been, they both wrote music as early as 1759. 152 This fact makes him a man of the greatest importance in musical circles. We wish to correct here a statement made by various writers on American music, that William Billings was the first American composer. This is absolutely false, since Hopkinson and Leon composed music at least 10 years before Billings did, while the latter was yet a child. It will not be out of place here to give a short account of Francis Hopkinson, laying particular stress upon his musical labors, especially as regards German music. Francis Hopkinson was born in Philadelphia, September 21, 1737, the son of Thomas and Mary Hopkinson. He must have been keen, active, and studious, since, while yet a boy of 20, he received his degree with the first class ever graduated from the College of Philadelphia. From now on he advanced in knowledge and in favor with the world. In 1760 he received the degree of Master of Arts from his alma mater, and in 1763 received the same degree from the College of New Jersey. In 1790 his own college conferred upon him the degree of Doctor of Laws. His public life was too active to give more than the briefest sketch. His first public office was that of secretary to the governor in a conference between the latter and the Lehigh Indians. From now on, he held many offices, as secretary of the Library Company in 1759, 1772, collector of the Port of Newcastle, 1774 held a seat in Provincial Council of New Jersey, 1776 delegate to the Continental Congress, signer of the Declaration of Independence, 1779 judge of the Admiralty from Pennsylvania, 1778 trustee of the College of Philadelphia. Besides this, he wrote many political pieces, of which the Battle of the Kegs, 1778, was the most popular. He was also for a time organist in Christ Church, instructor in psalmody, a pillar of the church, and an inventor of improvements for the harpsichord. 153 Our first knowledge that Hopkinson studied music is a notice in the magazine containing his Ode on Music, which remarks, written at Philadelphia by a young gentleman of 17, on his beginning to learn the harpsichord. 154 The only professional music master at that time was John Beals. 155 But, later, 1757, came John Palma. 156 And in 1763 James Bremner. 157 Hopkinson may have taken lessons from any or all of these men, for all we know to the contrary, but it is certain that he was a pupil of Jas Bremner, a Scotch musician of some note. 158 Hopkinson made his first public appearance as a musician probably in 1757 when the Masque of Alfred Words by Thompson Mallet, music by Dr. Arne, was given at the College of Philadelphia as an exercise in oratory. 159 He may have been accompanist for this performance. It is interesting to note with what music Hopkinson was acquainted at this time, and for this purpose I shall quote from Sonnet's exhaustive work, the torso of a book with the memorandum. Francis Hopkinson, 1755, attracts our attention. It is in manuscript, possibly of the owner. Most pieces have a figured bass, and are Italian, French, English trios, songs, and duets, arranged for the harpsichord, amongst them for instance a song in the Triumph of Hibernia, an air in Atlanta by Handel, and a famous water piece by the same author. 160 Another book of manuscript bearing the date, 1759, contains pieces by Handel with 10 pieces, Samson, evidently being Hopkinson's favorite oratorio by the master, Signor Palma, and Signor Vinci both with 4, Arne with 2, Pepusch, Alexis a cantata. Dr. Boyce, Pergolesi, and Purcell with 1 piece. 161 A third volume called Lessons, date not given, contains, among others, compositions by Handel who predominates, Scarlatti, Abel, Steinmetz, Vivaldi, Galuppi, Pugnani, Stanley, Smith, Schmidt, Pasquale, Giardini, Corelli, Geminiani, Lord Kelly. 162 From these manuscripts it will be seen that Hopkinson was familiar with many of the best composers of the world. He was evidently especially fond of Italian and English composers, but we may judge that he liked Handel's music best of all. In the list directly above there are mentioned the following Germans: Handel, Abel, Steinmetz, Schmidt. Also the Englishman, Stanley, was a particular friend of Handel, and his music, as was all music of England at that time, must have been modelled after Handel's. Then there is Lord Kelly, who studied music in Germany. We believe that the greater part of this music was brought to Hopkinson's attention by the music masters from London, and if that is so, it naturally follows that others of their pupils became acquainted with standard composers. We may be sure, too, that Handel, who was almost idolized in England during this century, had impressed these English-American music masters with his importance, and they would not keep to themselves their knowledge of him and his works. Handel, says one writer, for nearly a century, stood to the English school as a model of everything that was good and great, to such an extent that very little of original value was accomplished in that country, and when, by lapse of time and a deeper self-consciousness on the part of English musicians, this influence had begun to wane, a new German composer came in the person of Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, who, in turn, became a popular idol, and for many years a barrier to original effort. 163. To turn again to Hopkinson, we find that he not only had manuscript books of music, but also printed works such as 6 sonatas for the pianoforte or harpsichord, composed by Frederick Theodor Schumann, Opera 5th London 162 Handel's songs selected from the oratorios. 162. Then there were books by Italian composers, with which we are not concerned. 164. From the evidence already presented, it will probably be granted that the German concert music which was found in Philadelphia in the early 18th century, was brought in rather by the English musicians than by the Germans. We find the taste for music in London reflected by the various music teachers, and by the actors who came to Philadelphia from London during the 6th and 7th decades. This English influence lasted until the War of the Revolution, during which there was a period of quiescence. After peace was restored, the English, Germans, and French, the latter exiles and victims of the French Revolution, all aided in the continuance of high-class music. Subscription concerts, or in fact concerts of any kind, seem to have gone out of fashion in Philadelphia, but in 1764 there was an awakening and a series of concerts was instituted, beginning January the 19th, to be continued every other Thursday, till the 24th of May following. No more than 70 subscribers will be admitted, and each, on paying £3 for the season, to have one lady's ticket to be disposed of every concert night, as he thinks proper. 165. This then was a series of subscription concerts, and must have been confined to the aristocracy of the town. The next year another series of such concerts was given, 166, so they were evidently quite successful. Of these concerts there has been no program discovered, but in the spring of 1765 there is a program of a concert, which is probably representative of the programs given at that time. The advertisement for this concert is of interest. On Wednesday evening the 10th instant at the College Hall in the city was performed a solemn entertainment of music under the direction of Mr. Bremner, 167, interspersed with oratorios, by some of the young students. Nearly £130 was raised for the benefit of the charity schools belonging to the said college. 168. The program included overtures of Stamitz, Kelly, and Arne, and Martini, and a concerto of Geminiani, also, sacred songs, orations, and a violin solo. Besides these exhibitions there were probably concerts of chamber music, as witness, even in the last century 18th it was usual for families to have meetings at their houses for their improvement in music. Governor Penn, who played the violin, had musical soirees every Sunday evening at his house in South 3rd Street, during a portion of the year. Dr. Adam Kuhn, himself an amateur, attended them. 169. The first definite mention of an orchestra was in 1767, when it was announced that the singing in the Southwark Theatre was accompanied by a band of music. 170. An estimate as to this orchestra is herewith given: violins, flute, harpsichord, oboe, cello, trumpet, and, perhaps, French horn and drum. There were sparks in the town, who also indulged in serenading their lady loves, an account of which is given by an Englishman in a letter to his sister: "Dear sister, pray, as old Polonius says, when you was young and in love, did you approve of serenading? It is extremely in vogue here now. The manner is as follows: we, with 4 or 5 young officers of the regiment in barracks, drink as hard as we can, to keep out the cold, and about midnight sally forth, attended by the band, which consists of 10 musicians, horns, clarinets, hautboys, and bassoons, march through the streets, and play under the window of any lady you choose to distinguish, which they esteem a high compliment. In about an hour all the blackguards who sleep upon the bulks, with gentlemen of a certain profession who sweeten the streets at night, are collected round, drawn by that charm which soothes a savage breast, and altogether make it extremely agreeable in a fine frosty morning. 171 In this letter are mentioned clarinets and bassoons, instruments possibly not common in Philadelphia. The band probably belonged to the regiment of which the writer was a member, and was very small compared to the regimental bands of today. That there could not have been many professional musicians in Philadelphia is shown by a notice concerning the Southwark Theatre in 1769, the orchestra on opera nights, will be assisted by some musical persons, who as they have no view, but to contribute to the entertainment of the public, certainly claim a protection from any manner of insult. 172 Evidently at this early period people were beginning to be critical, and, as the orchestra did not come up to their expectations, they did not hesitate to show their resentment. It has been said that no concerts are to be traced in Philadelphia in 1766 and 1767. 173 In 1767, however, Mr. Garner, a teacher of psalmody, advertises 4 charity concerts. 174 Upon which a little light is thrown by the following notices given by Mr. Garner concerning one of these concerts, the vocal parts by Mr. Wools, Miss Wainwright, and Miss Hallam. The greatest care shall be taken to render the entertainment pleasing and satisfactory. 175 The program not being in existence, we cannot say with a surety what character it assumed. It may have been partly of a sacred character, but it is also likely, since the 3 singers mentioned belonged to the theatre, that the program had at least a semi-worldly tinge. In 1767 arrived in Philadelphia an Italian, John Guildo, who exercised, for a few years, a great influence upon the musical taste of the people. His choice of music was not limited to compositions of Italian masters, nor to his own compositions, since one of his advertisements states, that the instrumental music is by Messrs. Geminiani, Barbella, Campiani, Zanetti, Pellegrino, Abel, Bach, Guildo, the Earl of Kelly, and others. 176 Sonnet dates Guildo's first concert November 16, 1769. 177 But according to the following advertisement it would seem to have taken place a month earlier, to the public, at the Assembly Room, on next Wednesday, being the 18th of October, will be performed a concert of vocal and instrumental music, for the benefit of a little master, not 7 years old, who will give a specimen of his early abilities. The concert to be directed by Mr. Guildo, after the Italian method. Tickets at $1 apiece. After the concert, the company, if agreeable, shall be furnished with a set of players, without any expenses, in order to end the evening with a ball. 178 handbills were distributed giving the program. In his next concert, November 16, 2 of his performers were Germans, if we may judge from the names. Mr. Kurtz played the harpsichord, while Mr. Hoffman Jr. was a clarinet soloist. 179 Another concert not noted by Sonnet was to be given after the races on September 27, 1770. 180 In his next advertisement Guildo gives a list of the instruments to be used in his next concert, as follows: violins, German flutes, French horns, clarinet, harpsichord, and mandolin. 181 In 1771 Guildo gave his last concert. This same year is important as it brings to our notice a German, Philip Roth, who was, perhaps, the first German composer of secular music in Philadelphia. This first piece was composed for the following concert, by permission and particular desire, for the benefit of Mr. John McLean, instructor of the German flute. Will be performed, at the Assembly Room, in Lodge Alley, a concert of music, vocal and instrumental, to begin precisely at 6 o'clock in the evening. On Thursday the 5th of December. The concert will consist of 2 acts, commencing and ending with favorite overtures, performed by a full band of music, with trumpets, kettle drums, and every instrument that can be introduced with propriety. The performance will be interspersed with the most pleasing and select pieces composed by approved authors, and a solo will be played on the German flute, by John M. Lean, and the whole will conclude with an overture, composed, for the occasion, by Philip Roth, Master of the Band, belonging to His Majesty's Royal Regiment of North British Fusiliers, etc. 182. From this advertisement it will be seen that there must have been an orchestra or band of some importance at this time, and it is quite probable that the British regiments which at various times were stationed in Philadelphia, were important factors in extending the love of music, by means of concerts which the regimental bands must have given. In 1772 a concert program of little interest was given at the State House 183, and in 1774 one by Sigr. Sodi 184. In a previous chapter was mentioned H. B. Victor, and the concert he intended to give 185. The War of the Revolution soon dawned, and with it matters of a serious nature engaged the minds of the people, although occasionally a ball was given, and perhaps regimental concerts. The playhouses, which for over 10 years, had been an important feature, and had been well patronized by Philadelphians, were closed in 1778 by Act of Congress, but, nevertheless, there was given occasionally a farce or concert. 186. Still music and drama were almost at a standstill during the war. Footnotes: 143 Pa Gaz, June 26, 1755. 144 Pa Mag of History, Volume 17, p. 273. 145 Pa Journal, March 2 to 5, 1756. 146 Pa Gaz, September 7, 1758. 147 Pa Gaz 148 CFOG Sonek, Francis Hopkinson and James Leon. 149 Palma was formerly a music teacher in London. 150 Pa Gaz, January 20, 1757. 151 Pa Journal, March 24, 1757. 152 Cf. Sonek, Francis Hopkinson, etc. An admirable discussion. 153 Cf. E. P. Cheney, History of U of P, p. 288 ff. Also Cf. Sonek, Francis Hopkinson, etc. 154 American Magazine, October 1757. 155 Cf. above, p. There was however a music mistress. Cf. above, p. 156 Cf. above 9. 157 Pa Gaz, December 1, 1763. 158 Sonek, Francis Hop, etc., p. 29. 159 Sonek, Francis Hop, etc., p. 22 and 40, Pa Gaz, January 20, 1757. 160 Sonek, Father Hop, etc., p. 32. 161 Sonek, Father Hop, etc., p. 33. 162 Sonek, Father Hop, etc., p. 34. 163 W. S. B. Matthews. A Popular History of Music, p. 281. 164 Sonek, Father Hop, etc., p. 34. 165 Pa Gaz, January 12, 1764. 166 Pa Gaz, November 1, 1764. 167 cf above, p. 168 pa Gaz, April 18, 1765. 169 W. G. Armstrong, Record of the Opera in Philadelphia, p. 6. 170 pa Gaz, September 24, 1767. 171 pa Mag of History, Volume 11, p. 281. 172 pa Gaz, November 30, 1769. 173 cf Sonic, Early Concert Life. 174 pa Journ, January 8, 1767. 175 pa Chronicle, February 2, 1767. 176 pa Jour, November 30, 1769. 177 Sonic, Early Concert Life, etc., p. 71. 178 pa Chronicles, October 16, 1769. 179 cf Program in Sonex, Early Concert Life, p. 31. 180 pa Jour, September 27, 1770. 181 pa Chronicles, October 8, 1770. 182 pa Gaz, November 28, 1771. 183 pa Gaz, August 19, 1772. 184 Sonic, Early Concert Life, p. 76. 185 cf above, p. 39. 186 Madeira, Annals of Music, p. 33. Part 3 Period of Greatest Development, 1783 to 1800. Chapter 7. Alexander Reinagel. During the Revolutionary War it has been stated, that concert music was at a premium. However, in the fall of 1783 was founded by John Bentley, the City Concert, which was an important step in the musical life of Philadelphia. These concerts were to be given every 2 weeks. As no programs have been preserved, we are unable to determine just what music was used. As Sonic says, it goes without saying that John Bentley engaged the best musicians to be had in the city and that he performed music in keeping with the refined taste of such men as Francis Hopkinson and Thomas Jefferson. 187 These concerts were evidently kept up until the season of 1785-6. In 1786 a musician arrived in Philadelphia, who was of great importance to the musical life of that time. This was Alexander Reinagel, one of the ablest musicians in America in that century. He was born in 1765 at Portsmouth, England, of Austrian parents. 188 He seems to have inherited, as did his brothers Joseph and Hugh, a love of music from his father, who was a skillful musician. Alexander studied music in Scotland with Rayner Taylor, who later became one of the leading musicians in Philadelphia. The material concerning Reinagel before his arrival in America is scanty, but the few data there are show that he was known to the musical world of that time. In a memorandum book 189 of his, preserved in the Library of Congress, is an account of a trip which he took to Lisbon 1784-5 in company with his brother Hugh, an eminent cellist. 190 who was sick with consumption. They arrived in Lisbon the 23rd of October, and Reinagel tells of their lodgings there, expenses, etc. Of special interest is an item for January, 1785, had a concert in the Assembly Room. 8th Janie performed to the Queen and Our Family Sunday, July 16. Rect. A present from Her Majesty of 50 moids. After burying his brother Hugh, who died the 19th of March, 1785, he embarked from Lisbon Saturday 23 April, sailed 24th and arrived in Portsmouth Tuesday May 17. Made in Lisbon, by concert £100 by Queen 67 2 P Fortes 34 Ditto 35 Teaching 312 Fund 3110 267 2 Expenses at Maes £7 Medicines 23 Diet from March 15 to 23 April at Mrs. Morley's 51 in all Diet £58 Medicines 2381. From these statements it would appear that his trip financially was a decided success. It would seem from the large sums of money obtained from his performances at Lisbon, that he must have been well known as a prominent musician. There is further evidence of his standing in the musical world disclosed by O.G. Sonek in an article in the Quarterly Magazine of the International Music Society, entitled Zwei Brief CPHM. Bax and Alex. Reinagel. They were evidently good friends, as Bach writes, Monsieur je vous suis infiniment obliged du souvenir dont vous m'honorez et je souhaite que vous veillez me les conserver toujours. Et dans les cours de vos années les plus riantes. La nouvelle que vous me donnez de la triste situation de Mr. votre frère me chagrine beaucoup, tant par rapport à vous tuer lui-même. Les s'il vous comble de prospérités, un de plus cher c'est la santé même. Je vous envoie la musique, que vous m'avez demandé, le prix est fixe au prix ordinaire. La musique que je vous ai donne pour vous-même, à Hamburg est fixe au prix de prémunération, en votre faveur. Quand vous m'écrivez une autre fois, ne manquez pas de me marquer votre sort, auquel je m'intéresse beaucoup. En même temps je vous prie de me faire avoir votre portrait et celui de Mr. votre frère, seulement en dessin, pour les placer dans mon cabinet de portraits de musiciens. Cela me servira d'aide dans les souvenirs de votre amitié, dans les retours de laquelle je suis et serai toujours. Monsieur votre très humble serviteur. Hamburg CE 25 du mois de février 1785. CHPHM. Bach. The other letter is without date, but Sonek conjectures that it was written the last of 1785 or the beginning of 1786. It runs as follows: Liebwer Tester Freund, ich bedauere von Herzen den Verlusters Leben und Braven Herrenbruders eben so sehr, als ich mich über ihr gut Aufnahme in Lissabon und glücklich wieder Konfit in London gefreut have. Ihr Projekt wegen meiner gedruckten Rondos kann mir in der Folge viel Schaden thun, weil mein mit großen Kosten von mir in starken Auflagen verlegten Sammlungen, waren sie stehen, unverkauft liegen bleiben werden. Die Liebhaberei zu den Rondos ist hier eben so groß, wie in London, und ich have sie deswegen mit in Gemist, meinen Verkauf zu befördern. Ich weiß aus der Erfahrung, dass sehr viel mein Sammlungen bloß wegen der Rondos kaufen. Folglich sind mir Exemplare von ihren verlegten Rondos nix nutze, sondern ich wünscht lieber, dass sie gar nicht nach Deutschland kämen, Ongicht Westphal hier und Hummel in Berlin ganz Quantitäten von ihnen werden kommen lassen. Ich will jedoch ihnen, da sie etwas damit zu verdienen glauben, ihnen weg vorschlagen, wodurch sie zu ihrem Zweck kommen könnten, ohne ihnen nach Druck befürchten zu dürfen. In der zweiten, dritten, vierten und fünften Sammlung stehen überhaupt Rondos. Von diesen Sammlungen haben sie vor, aber die 5, glaube ich haben sie noch nicht, und kann sie ihnen, weil 2 Rondos darin stehen, überskicken. Zu diesen 11 Rondos will ihnen noch 4 neue Rondos komponieren, ich will zufrieden sein, dass sie mir Erlaubnis zu dem Druck dieser schon gedruckten 11 Rondos öffentlich kunthen, und endlich müssen sie auch bekannt machen, Das ich ausdrücklich für sie nach neue Rondos dazu gemacht have. Dies 15 Rondos können sie in vor oder weniger Abteilungen herausgeben. Es muss aber in jedem Thiel etwas Neues daven stehen. Dieses Mittel und mein Effentliche Erlaubnis sichert sie gewiss vor einem Nachdruck. Für mich Tung und für mein nu dazugekommen en Composition verlange nicht mehr und nicht weniger als 34 Guineas. Ich verspreche Ihnen zugleich, dass ich die vor neuen Rondos niemanden geben noch viel weniger drucken lassen will. Ich kann Ihnen versichern dass one Thiel von meinen Sammlungen, waren nur 2 Rondos vorkommen, noch Abzug aller Kosten, mir wenigstens 1000 Mark Hyaciges Geld bisher gebracht haben, ohne einige 100 Exemplare zu rechnen, die ich noch vorrätig have, und welch noch verkauft werden. Die Auslieferung meiner vor neuen Rondos auf einmal geschieht zugleich bei der Bezahlung auf einmal. Wir sind der Menschen. Wegender Fantasien künftig oder mundlich ein mehreres. Ein baldig genugtwendy Antwort mitja. Oder nein. Bitte ich mir. Mit vielen Grussen verher ich ihr Freund und Diener. Bach. Hier in Deutschland hat mir noch niemand etwas nachgedruckt, ich werde auch so gleich in den Zeitungen einen solchen Nachdrucker öffentlich als einen Betrüger erklärt haben, dafür halt man hier durch einen solchen Menschen, und das will keiner wagen. Mein öffentlich Erlaubnis zu ihrem Druck und die neuen ingemischten Rondos werden ganz gewiss einen Nachdruck zu ihrem Schaden abhalten. 191 These letters merely show that Reinagel before coming to this country was a capable musician, was known as such by prominent musicians in Europe, and probably through his intimacy with Bach would have studied quite extensively the compositions of German musicians. It was in the year 1786 that Reinagel arrived in New York with the intention of settling. He inserted the following advertisement in the New York Independent Journal: Mr. Reinagel, member of the Society of Musicians in London, gives lessons on the pianoforte, harpsichord, and violin. 192 Evidently he did not prosper according to his expectations in New York, since the same year he established himself in Philadelphia. He at once became identified with the musical life of the city, and in conjunction with H. Capron, W. Brown and A. Johann, Reinagel continued the city concerts instituted in 1783. 193 The first program played in that year will give some idea of the taste of the people of that epoch. First concert, October 19, 1786. Act I Favorite Symphony Van Hall Song, Mr. Capron Gretry Sonata, Pianoforte Haydn and Reinagel Act 2. Concerto Flute Windling A Favorite Rond. Solo Violoncello Tiliera Act 3. Concerto Violin Kramer New Symphony Haydn 194 Miscellaneous Concerto. It will be seen by this program that German music had its share of importance, and in later concerts the compositions of Mozart, Haydn, Handel, Bach, Pleyel, Abel, Stamitz, Schmidbauer, Heimberger, etc., were given. Undoubtedly the high grade of these concerts and the predominance of the works of German composers, was due to the musical taste of Reinagel. It is not our intention here to give all the programs which were performed in Philadelphia during this period. Our intention is, however, to give new material which has hitherto not been published. The city concerts Sonic has traced through the year 1788, and then he adds that apparently the city concert was then discontinued as no further reference to it is made until the attempted revival in 1792. 195 Although no records have as yet been found, still it seems very probable that these concerts were continued without interruption through 1789 to 90. For the year 1791 there is a complete file of the programs given. The opening announcement is as follows: the first concert will be held on Saturday the 22nd instant, at the new rooms in Chestnut Street, where they will be continued every other Saturday during the season. Plan of the first concert. Act I-1. Grand Overture of Haydn, Opera 51-2. Song, by a Young Lady, composed by Dr. Boyce 3. Solo on the clarinet, Mr. Wolf 4. Quartet of Pleyel 5. Concerto on the grand piano forte Miss Mahler Act 2. One new overture of Haydn 2. Song, by a Young Lady, composed by a Reinagel 3. Concerto Violin Master Duport 4. Duet, grand piano forte and violoncello, Mr. Mahler, an amateur 5. Finale of De Lissac 196 second concert, February 5. Act I-1. Overture Pleyel 2. Song Mr. Wolf 3. Concertant Cambani 4. Sonato on the grand piano forte Miss Mahler 5. Concerto Clarinet Mr. Wolf Act 2. 1 Overture Pleyel 2. Song Mr. Wolf 3. Duetto Violin and Violoncello Bevel by Mr. Duport and an amateur 4. Trio on the grand piano forte, by Mr. Mahler 5. Quartet Violin Mr. Reinagel 6. Finale 197 Third Concert, February 19. Act I-1. Grand Overture of Haydn 2. Sonato Piano Forte Miss Mahler 3. Quartet Violin Pleyel 4. Concerto Clarinet Mr. Wolf 5. Solo Violin, in which are introduced some favorite Scotch airs, Mr. Reinagel Act 2. 1 Overture Steinmetz 2. Concerto Violoncello, by an amateur. 3 Sonato Piano Forte Mr. Mahler 4. A favorite concerto of La Motte by Master Duport 5. Finale 198 Fourth Concert, March 5. Act I-1. Grand Overture of Haydn 2. Miscellaneous Quartet Mr. Reinagel 3. Sonato, Grand Piano Forte Mr. Mahler 4. Quarteto, Clarinet Mr. Wolf 5. Concerto, Grand Piano Miss Mahler 6. Quartet, Violin Pleyel 7. Finale. Act 2-1. Overture of Haydn. After the concert Master Duport will perform a grand dance 199 Fifth Concert, March 26. Act I-1. Grand Overture of Haydn 2. Song. 3 Sonato, Piano Forte Miss Mahler 4. Quartet, Clarinet Wolf 5. Overture Act 2. 1 Overture of Gossec 2. Song. 3 Miscellaneous Quartet Reinagel 4. Concerto Piano Forte Mahler 5. Finale 206th Concert, April 16. Act I-1. Overture Ditters 2. Sonata Grand Piano Forte Miss Mahler 3. Song Mrs. G4. Concerto, Clarinetto Mr. Wolf 5. Overture Abel Act 2. 1 Overture Limited Kelly 2. Song Mrs. G3. Quartet Violin Mr. Reinagel 4. Concerto Grand Piano Forte Mr. Mahler 5. Finale of Haydn 201 Last Concert of the Season, April 30th. Act I-1. Overture Abel 2. Sonata Piano Forte Miss Mahler 3. Song Mrs. G4. Concerto Clarinetto Mr. Wolf Act 2. 1 Overture Steinmetz 2. Song Mrs. G3. Miscellaneous Quartet Mr. Reinagel 4. Concerto Piano Forte Miss Mahler 5. Finale of Haydn 202. Besides the city concerts, so-called amateur concerts were given at an early period and were still kept up in 1791, contrary to the belief of Og Sonek. For instance, there are advertisements and programs showing that the usual standard of concert music was performed. Amateurs concert. A concert will be performed at Mr. Henry Epples, at 7 o'clock this evening. 203 Again, we are notified that this evening the 3D instant there will be a ball, only. 204 It seems probable that these concerts were followed by a dance. Also, benefit concerts were still given as the following shows: benefit concert for Master Duport, March 19. Act I1. Overture of Abel II. Concerto, Violin Master Duport 3. Quartet Clarinet Wolf 4. Sonato, Piano Forte Reinagel 5. Overture Haydn Act 2. 1 Overture Van Hul 2. Trio of Boccherini 3. Overture, La Divan de Village of Rousseau 205 Benefit Concert for Miss Mahler, April 2. Act I1. Overture Ditters 2. Song Mrs. G3. Sonato, Grand Piano Forte Miss Mahler 4. Concerto, Clarinetto Mr. Wolf 5. Duetto, Violoncello and Grand Piano Forte, by an amateur and Mr. Mahler. 6 Finale Haydn Act 2. 1 Grand Overture Martini 2. Song Mrs. G3. Quartetto Messrs. Reinagel, etc., etc. 4. Duetto, Grand Piano Forte Miss Mahler 5. Finale Martini 206 Concerts were given, 2, at Vauxhall with programs equally as good as those of the city and amateur concerts, and an orchestra was undoubtedly present. 207 Vocal and Instrumental Concert at Vauxhall, May 18. First Act. 1 A Grand Overture of Haydn 2. Sinfonia Stamitz 3. Solo Rondo Violin File 4. Quartetto Violin de Vos 5. Sinfonia Van Hall 2nd Act. 1 Sinfonia of Abel 2. Song Bride Phoebus. 3 Quartetto Violino Camel 4. Fischer's Rondo, Clarinet by Mr. Wolf 5. Sinfonia Abel, after which harmony, music, and songs. 208 Vauxhall Concert, May 27. First Act. 1 Overture of Lachmitz 2. Sinfonia Stamitz 3. Quartetto Violin de Vos 4. Song, by Mrs. Kenna 5. Sinfonia Abel 2nd Act. 1 Overture File 2. Quartetto, Clarinetto Wolf 3. A Duetto, Song by Mr. and Mrs. Kenna 4. Quartetto Schultz 5. Sinfonia Camel Harmony Music and Songs by Mr. and Mrs. Kenna 209 Vauxhall Concert, Sep 2. 1 Grand Overture of Martini 2. Ditto Haydn 3. Ditto Salome and Azor 4. Concerto, Violin by Mr. File 5. Solo Rondo, Clarinet, by Mr. Wolf 6. Song, by Mr. Wolf 210. By comparing these programs, it will be readily seen that the performers in the city concerts also take part in the amateur and Vauxhall concerts, etc., so we may be sure that the concerts were all about on a par. The city concerts were continued the next season. 211 The following announcement was made concerning them: City Concert, of Vocal and Instrumental Music. Under the direction of Messrs. Reinagel and Mahler. The vocal parts by Mrs. Sewell and Mrs. Morris. The concert will commence on Saturday the 19th instant, at the Assembly Room, in Chestnut Street. 212 First Concert, November 19th. Act I1. New Overture of Mr. Mahler 2. Hunting Song Mrs. Morris 3. Concerto, Grand Piano Forte Miss Mahler 4. Quartetto, Violin Mr. Reinagel, etc. 5. Overture. Act 2. 1 Overture of Pickle 2. Duet, Violin and Viola of Stamitz 3. Song Mrs. Morris 4. Sonato, pianoforte and violin, Mahler and Reinagel 213 Second Concert, December 3. Act I1. Overture of Abel 2. Song Mrs. Morris 3. Sonata, pianoforte Miss Mahler 4. Miscellaneous Quartet Mr. Reinagel, etc. Act 2. 1 Overture Reinagel 2. Duetto, violin, and viola. 3 Song Mrs. Morris 4. Sonata, pianoforte, and violin Mahler and Reinagel 5. Finale of Abel 214 Third Concert, December 17. Act I1. Overture of Stamitz, Sonare. 2 Duet, Mrs. Morris and Mr. Reinagel 3. Sonata, pianoforte Miss Mahler 4. Quartet of Pleyel 5. Overture Abel Act 2. 1 Overture Pickle 2. New Miscellaneous Quartet Mr. Reinagel 3. Song Mrs. Morris 4. Sonata, pianoforte Mr. Mahler, of Pleyel 5. Finale Abel 215 Fourth Concert, December 31. Act I1. Overture, 4th Opera, 10 of Abel 2. Song Mrs. Morris 3. Sonata, pianoforte Miss Mahler 4. Quartet of Pleyel 5. Periodical Overture Bach Act 2. 1 Overture Reinagel 2. Miscellaneous Quartet Stamitz 3. Song Mrs. Morris 4. Concerto, pianoforte, Mr. Mahlen, of Schroeder 5. Finale Abel 216 Fifth Concert, January 14, 1792 Act I1. Overture of Mahler 2. Song, from the New Opera of the Woodman, Mrs. Morris 3. Sonata, pianoforte Miss Mahler 4. Concerto, French horn Mons. Pelissier 5. Periodical Overture of Abel Act 2. 1 Overture of Holdswara 2. The First Miscellaneous Quartet of Vacan 3. Song, Damon's All Inconstancy, Mrs. Morris 4. Concerto, pianoforte Mr. Mahler 5. Finale 217 Sixth Concert Act I1. Overture 44th of Van Hall 2. Hunting Song Mrs. Morris 3. Sonata pianoforte Miss Mahler 4. Miscellaneous Quartet Mr. Reinagel Act 2. 1 Overture to Rosina's Shield 2. Song, from the Woodman, Mrs. Morris 3. Concerto, pianoforte Mr. Mahler 4. Quartet, French horn Mr. Pelissier 5. Overture of Jamali 218 Seventh Concert, February 11. Act I1. Overture 1st of M. A. Gwenin 2. Song Mrs. Morris 3. Sonata, pianoforte Miss Mahler 4. Quartet of Pleyel Mr. Reinagel, etc. 5. Overture 2 D. M. A. Gwenin Act 2. 1 Overture of Stamitz 2. Duetto, violin, and viola Mahler and Reinagel 3. Song Mrs. Morris 4. Concerto, pianoforte Mr. Mahler 5. Finale Abel 219 8th and last city concert of the season held March 10. Act I1. Overture 6th, Op. 10, of Abel 2. Song Mrs. Morris 3. Sonata, pianoforte Miss Mahler 4. Quartet, Pleyel Mr. Reinagel, etc. 5. Overture Haydn Act 2. 1 Overture 57 Van Hall 2. Miscellaneous Quartet 3. Song Mrs. Morris 4. Concerto pianoforte Mr. Mahler 5. Finale Crispy 220 Finally a city concert benefit was given for Miss Mahler. Act I1. Overture, by Pickle 2. Song, The Traveller Benighted, Miss Mahler 3. Quartet, French horn Mr. Pelissier 4. Grand Ariette, Sortie, with accompaniment by a guitar, composed by Mr. Kissenard, Amateur 5. Concerto Violin Mr. File Act 2. 1 Overture by Abel 2. Ariette du Marquis de Florient, by Mr. Kissenard, Amateur 3. Concerto Piano Forte Miss Mahler 4. Duetto, Violin, and Tenor Messrs. Reinagel and Mahler 5. Finale Van Hall 221 Footnote, at a concert given at Vauxhall in 1792 the instrumental parts were taken by a number of Germans, Messrs. Pfeil, Schultz, Tremmer, Scotchman Bremner Roth, Christhilf, Spangenberg etc., CFAM Daily ADV June 8, 1792. C.F. Durang, History of the Stage in Philadelphia, Chapter 12, who gives the name Trimmer. A glance at these programs or at the city concert programs published by Sonic 222 should convince anyone that the musical taste of Philadelphia was good, also that the German composers were favorites at least with the managers and a predilection was shown for Abel, Stamitz, Pleyel, and Haydn. Reinagel was not only interested in the artistic production of music, but also, according to one writer, in the industrial development. He is said to have had a share in the piano manufactory established by Charles Taws 223 concerning the residence of Reinagel in Philadelphia. His contemporaries have something to say. At that time Wignall was an important factor in the theatrical world, and in the fall of 1791 he associated himself with Mr. Reinagel, a professor of music in Philadelphia, and a composer of some note at that time. 224 They founded the first Chestnut Street Theatre, the cornerstone of which was laid by Mr. Reinagel, a master mason, in Masonic form. 225 The new theatre was opened to the public for the first time on Saturday evening, April 2d, 1793, with a grand concert of vocal and instrumental music. 226 The orchestra department was under the direction of manager Reinagel, and the musicians were deemed equal in ability with the stage artists. In truth the orchestra contained about 20 accomplished musicians, many of them of great notoriety as concerto players on their respective instruments. The concentration of that early date of so much dramatic, operatic, and instrumental talent, introduced a new era of theatricals here. Who that once saw old manager Reinagel in his official capacity, could ever forget his dignified personae? He presided at his pianoforte, looking the very personification of the patriarch of music, investing the science of harmonious sounds, as well as the dramatic school, with a moral influence, reflecting and adorning its salutary uses with high respectability and polished manners. His appearance was of the reverent and impressive kind, which at once inspired the universal respect of the audience. Such was Reinagel's imposing appearance, that it awed the disorderly of the galleries, or the fop of annoying propensities, and impertinent criticism of the box lobby into decorum. It was inspiring to behold the polished Reinagel saluting from his seat, before the grand square pianoforte in the orchestra, the highest respectability of the city, as it entered the boxes to take seats. It was a scene before the curtain that suggested a picture of the master of private ceremonies receiving his invited guests at the fashionable drawing room. Mr. Reinagel was a gentleman and a musician. His compositions evinced decided cleverness and originality, and some of his accompaniments to the old opera music were much admired by good judges. 227 An article by William McCoy presents a clearer picture of Mr. Reinagel. He says, Mr. Reinagel, one of the managers, and a professor of music, used to be seen, but only on particular occasions, seated at the pianoforte, then standing against the stage, in the rear of the band orchestra for the mere purpose of touching a few notes solo, by way of accompaniment to the silvery tones of Mrs. Wignall. Mr. Reinagel, while thus enjoying the effect of her inimitable chant, exhibited to the audience a head not unlike that of Louis XIV but divested of the simplicity, bushy, powdered hair, large high forehead, and round full face, illuminated by silver-mounted spectacle glasses, a perceptible smirk at all times about the mouth, and an extraordinary depth of dimple in his cheek, while sitting there and surveying the irritability of Mr. Gillingham, the leader of the band, on his being obliged to leave the music of Handel and Mozart, and strike off into the President's March. 228 In Durang's account, the compositions of Reinagel are spoken of highly. There is the testimony of another man, an actor in Reinagel's company, to substantiate the above eulogy, as follows: 1804 By the death of Wignall ***** the management devolved upon his widow and Reinagel. ***** The musical department fell of course to the charge of Reinagel, whose compositions and adaptations were deserved favorites with the public. 229 Again, there is the testimony of a man of our own times to show that the above praise was not undeserved. Speaking of some of Reinagel's sonatas, O.G. Sonek says, these sonatas follow closely in the footsteps of Phm. Bach and the early Haydn without being void of individuality. If the larger works of Reinagel all were as fine and effective as these sonatas, he must have been a composer of merit. 230 Sonek has published titles of 42 works ascribed to Reinagel, 231 to which we have added several others, some of which are still in existence. These compositions include sonatas, overtures, preludes, songs, opera music, adaptations, accompaniments, etc. From all this evidence it will appear that Alexander Reinagel must have been a great force in music in Philadelphia, and did much to shape the taste of the people for good music, especially for German music, and may thus be called the greatest German-American musician of that century. Concerning his home life, it is known that Reinagel was married and had two sons, Hugh, a scenic painter of some note, and Thomas. The later years of his life Reinagel spent in the management of a theater in Baltimore, where he died September 21, 1809. 232 Note, for a list of Reinagel's compositions, cf. Appendix. Footnotes, 187 Sonek, Early Concert Life, p. 79. 188 Sonek, Quarterly Magazine of International Music Society, October-December, 1906, p. 112. 189 O.G. Sonek first called attention to this book in his article in the Quarterly Magazine of the International Music Society quoted above, p. 113. 190 cf. Articles on Hugh Reinagel, in Grove's Dictionary of Music, and in Dictionary of National Biography. 191 The originals are deposited in the Library of Congress. 192 Quoted from History of the Pianoforte in America, by Daniel Spelling. 193 Sonek, Early Concert Life, p. 78. 194 Quoted from Ditto, p. 81. 195 Sonek, Early Concert Life, p. 87. 196 cf. American Daily ADV, January 19, 1791. 197 AM Daily ADV, February 1, 1791. 198 AM Daily ADV, February 16, 1791. 199 AM Daily ADV, March 4, 1791. 200 AM Daily ADV, March 23, 1791. 201 AM Daily ADV, April 13, 1791. 202 AM Daily ADV, April 29, 1791. 203 AM Daily ADV, February 3, 1791. 204 AM Daily ADV, March 3, 1791. 205 AM Daily ADV, March 17, 1791. 206 AM Daily ADV, April 2, 1791. 207 AM Daily ADV, August 30, 1791. 208 AM Daily ADV, May 17, 1791. 209 AM Daily ADV, May 25, 1791. 210 AM Daily ADV, September 2, 1791. 211 Sonic, Early Concert Live, p. 87. 212 AM Daily ADV, November 9, 1791. 213 AM Daily ADV, November 19, 1791. 214 AM Daily ADV, December 1, 1791. 215 AM Daily ADV, December 15, 1791. 216 AM Daily ADV, December 30, 1791. 217 AM Daily ADV, January 12, 1792. 218 AM Daily ADV, January 28, 1792. 219 AM Daily ADV, February 11, 1792. 220 AM Daily ADV, March 8, 1792. 221 AM Daily ADV, March 31, 1792. 222 For a full discussion of concert life cf. Sonic, Early Concert Life, as well for French, English, and German influence. 223 cf. D. Spillane, History of the AM Pianoforte, p. 99. 224 Durang, History of the Stage in Philadelphia, Chapter 15. 225 Durang, History of the Stage in Philadelphia, Chapter 19. 226 Durang, History of the Stage in Philadelphia, Chapter 19. 227 Durang, Chapter 19. 228 Polson's Daily Advertiser, January 13, 1829. 229 Wood, Personal Recollections of the Stage, p. 104. 230 Sonic, Early Secular American Music, p. 13. 231 cf. Sonic, Early Secular American Music, p. 139. 232 Durang, Chapters 19 and 24. Chapter 8. Philip Roth and Philip Phil. Although Alexander Reinagel was the greatest musician of this period, there were others of importance as Johann, Mahler, Capron, Brown, Schetke, Wolf, etc., etc. It is not our intention to take up these men separately, as material is too scanty to warrant it. Sonic has given short biographies of most of these men. 233 There are two men, however, Philip Phil and Philip Roth, about whom we know considerable. They were both musicians of no mean caliber, appeared frequently in the concerts given in Philadelphia, and were also composers of music. Philip Roth's first public appearance, as far as is known, was in 1771 at the benefit concert of John M. Lean, when an overture composed by him for the occasion was performed. 234 This piece was, perhaps, the first of importance composed by a German in Philadelphia. The advertisement speaks of him as master of the band, belonging to His Majesty's Royal Regiment of North British Fusiliers. However, as will be shown later, he was undoubtedly a true German. From 1771 to 1785 we lose sight of Roth, but then he appears as a music teacher in Philadelphia 235. It is quite likely that he was here still earlier. He lived in Philadelphia from 1785 on until his death in 1804. The importance of Philip Roth lies in the fact that it has been claimed by some, that he is the composer of the President's March to which the song Hail Columbia was set. Others claim that Philip Phile was the author. The claims of Philip Roth, which at the most are meager, rest upon an article in a newspaper of 1829, written by W. M. McCoy, 25 years after Roth was dead. This article, as will be shown, contains one error, and may contain others. The article in question reads thus: the seat of the federal government of the 13 United States being removed to Philadelphia, and in honor of the new President Washington, then residing at number 190 High Street, the march, ever since known as the President's March, was composed by a German teacher of music, in this city, named Roth, or Roth, designated familiarly by those who knew him, as Old Roth. He taught those of his pupils who preferred the flute, to give to that instrument the additional sound of the drone, while playing in imitation of the Scotch bagpipe. His residence was at one time in that row of houses back from 5th, above Race Street, at that time known as the 14 Chimneys, some of which 1,829 are still visible in the rear ground, northeastward of Mayor's Church. In his person he was of the middle size and height. His face was truly German in expression, dark grey eyes, and bushy eyebrows, round pointed nose, prominent lips, and parted chin. He took snuff immoderately, having his ruffles and vest usually sprinkled with grains of rapee. He was considered an eccentric and a kind of droll. He was well known traditionally at the Samson and Lion, in Crown Street, where it seems, his company, in the olden time was always a welcome addition to the pewter pint customers, gathered there, at their pipes and beer, while listening to his facetious tales and anecdotes, without number, of high life about town, and of the players, Nick Hammond, Miss Tuke, Hodgkinson, Mrs. Pownall, and Jack Martin of the Old Theatre in Southwark. This said President's March, by Rote, the popular songs of Marco 236, the city poet, in particular the one called The Tailor Done Over, and the beautiful air of Dans Votre Lit, were sung and whistled by everyone who felt freedom, of mind, to whistle and sing. Public opinion having, released itself from a passion for French revolutionary music and song, experienced a vacuum in that particular, which was immediately supplied by the new, national American song of Hail Columbia Happy Land, written in '98, by Joseph Hopkinson, ESQ 237 of the city, and the measure adapted by him very judiciously, to the almost forgotten President's March. Even since 1798, the Song of Hail Columbia, by Joseph Hopkinson, and the President's March, by Johannes Roth, being indiscriminately called for, have become, in a manner synonymous to the public ear and understanding, when they are actually and totally distinct in their origin, as above mentioned. Such was the popularity of the song, that very frequently has Mr. Gillingham, leader of the band, orchestra, been forced to come to a full stop in the foreign music he had arranged for the evening by the deafening calls for this march, or song to the march. 238. In the first place, we wish to pick out a few errors, which will show why we must use this testimony with caution. The writer says that Roth was well known traditionally, evidently not personally known to him. Again he says that the President's March at the time Hail Columbia was written was almost forgotten, but on the contrary the actor, Gilbert Fox, urged Joseph Hopkinson to set words to that tune on account of its popularity. Thirdly, he says that the march was written by Johannes Roth. This is evidently an error in the Christian name due to traditions, as we will try to show. We have gone carefully through the city directories from 1785, when they were first printed, to 1806, also the newspapers of that time, and wills and letters of administration, but find no record of a Johannes Roth. We find a Philip Roth, and we shall strive now to give proof that they were one and the same, as so far there has been no adequate statement of this fact. To recapitulate, Philip Roth, we have already discovered, was a bandmaster in a British regiment in Philadelphia, and wrote an overture in 1771. 239. All trace of him is lost during the war, but he probably continued to fill his position in the British Army, or possibly the same position in the U.S. Army. In 1785 there is the name Philip Roots in the city directory. In 1788 he has an advertisement in the newspaper 240, while in 1789 we have the following: Mr. Roth, music master, in Pennington Alley running from Race to Vine Streets, between 4th and 5th Streets. Teaches all kinds of instrumental music in the shortest manner, viz. harpsichord or pianoforte, guitar, flute, hautboy, clarinet, bassoon, French horn, harp and thorough bass, which is the ground of music, etc. 241. In this advertisement we have Mr. Roth, not Philip nor Johannes. This would imply that the above-mentioned man was the only person in Philadelphia by the name of Roth who was a music teacher. There was no city directory after 1785 until 1791. In this year there appears this entry: Philip Roth, musician 25 Crown St. 242. Now turning to the advertisement again, we read that Mr. Roth lived, in Pennington Alley running from Race to Vine Streets, between 4th and 5th Streets. But the city directory informs us that Crown St. and Pennington Alley were one and the same. 243. To go a step further, let us compare the article on the President's March, above quoted, as to the abode of Johannes Roth, which says, his residence was at one time in that row of houses back from 5th, above Race Street, at that time known as the 14 Chimneys, northeastward from Mayor's Church. 244. Now comparing these three dwelling places, we find that they were on the same street, at least two of them, and the third in the same neighborhood, but we find that there was only one man, which our evidence gives, so we may be perfectly sure that the other two men may be fused into the one Philip Roth. This man lived, while he was in Philadelphia, in one locality as the directories show. 1791. Philip Roth, musician, 25 Crown Street. 1795. Philip Roth, 31 Race Street. 1798. Philip Roth, Crown St. 1797. Philip Roth, musician, Crown St. 1798. Philip Roth, musician, Crown St. 1799. Philip Roth, teacher of music, 33 Crown Street. 1800. Philip Roth, teacher of music, 33 Crown Street. 1801. Philip Roth, music master, 33 Crown Street. 1802. Philip Roth, music master, 33 Crown Street. 1803. Philip Roth, music master, 33 Crown Street. 1804. Philip Roth, music master, 33 Crown Street. His name is also given in the directory of 1805, but nevertheless he died in 1804. From the above, it is seen that he lived on the same street all the time he was in Philadelphia, with the exception of the year 1795 when he dwelt at 31 Race Street, which however, was not far away. We see, too, the different appellations given to him, as musician, teacher of music, and finally master of music. Evidently he was skilled as a musician, and was respected as such. Little else is known about Philip Roth, but we may presume that he played in the orchestra of the Old Southwark Theatre, perhaps was even the leader, since we know that he was well acquainted with the actors. 245 We do know that he composed a piece of music, or rather set to music a hunting song, which was printed in the Universal Asylum, April, 1790. He must indeed have been a skillful musician to be able to give lessons on all the instruments in his advertisement, 9 in all, although he could not have been proficient on all. Still he must have been talented. The date of his death has been misstated by the only author who has mentioned it at all. O.G. Sonek, in his book Early Secular American Music, 1905, page 190, and in an article Critical Notes on the Origin of Hail Columbia printed in the Sammelbandeter Internationalen Musikgesellschaft, 1901, states that Philip Roth died in 1805. It is true that in the city directory for 1805 his name is found, while in the directory for 1806 the following entry appears: wrote, widow of Philip, music master, 94 and 7th St 246. To offset the above evidence there is the documentary proof as follows: on the 24th day of September, 1804, letters of administration were granted unto Mary Roth on the estate of her husband, Philip Roth deceased, $200. Henry Lies of Philadelphia, Victualler. Jacob Grace of Nor Liberties, Carter. Sureties. 247. Philip Roth could not have amassed much wealth during his musical career, since his surety was only $200. So much for Philip Roth and his claims as author of the President's March. The other claimant is Philip File, about whom we know as little as about Philip Roth. As early as 1784 File was in Philadelphia, as there is a concert advertised for his benefit in that year. 248. Somewhat later than this, Durang, a contemporary of File, tells us that the orchestra at the beginning of the Old American Company production was Mr. Philo, leader, Mr. Bentley, harpsichord, Mr. Wolfe, principal clarinet, Trimmer, Hecker, and Son, violoncello, violins, etc. Some 6 or 7 other names, now not remembered, constituted the musical force. The latter were all Germans. 249. Mr. File was occupying a somewhat important position, the leadership of a German orchestra numbering some 12 or 13 men. From now on until his death in 1793, 250 File wandered back and forth between New York and Philadelphia. In 1784 he appears on the concert programs in the latter city. In 1786 with Alexander Reinagel he played a duet for violin and cello in New York. 251 While the next year he is back again in Philadelphia. 252 In 1792 he takes part in a concert together with Philip Roth and other Germans. 253 Perhaps Roth was a member of his orchestra. After 1789 he apparently settled down in Philadelphia, and lived on Race St. between front and second. 254 Such is the knowledge we have concerning File's life. Let us consider what are his claims to the authorship of the President's March. As in the case of Roth, the march was claimed for File by his friends, but in his case there are 2 different accounts of its origin as follows. 1. First, it was claimed for him by his son, who says he was present when it was played. He says that the march was composed by his father, and played at Trenton Bridge in 1789 in honor of Washington, who was on his way to New York to be inaugurated. 255 2. Second, it is said by the nephew of Washington, G.W. Custis, 1860, that this march was played in the John Saint Theatre, N.Y., November 24, 1789 in honor of Washington, who was present that evening. The composer is said to be a German named Fales. 256 Fales is a corruption of File, and we also find it spelled Philo, Philo, phyla, phyli, phils, files, etc. There are, then, two different statements as to the composition of this piece by file, which would lead us to think, that, in the minds of the people it was a doubtful question as to how and when this march was composed. To add to this, the claim that Philip Roth composed this march, only makes the situation more confused. Sonek has pointed out in his article Critical Notes on the Origin of Hail Columbia, 257 that there was no account in the daily papers of that time concerning this march, as there probably would have been, had it been composed in honor of so important a man as Washington. He, however, inclines to the belief that File did write the march, but until a manuscript with the name of the composer thereon is discovered, we cannot say with surety who did write it. 258 We have, then, these two composers before us and can pay our money and take our choice. Concerning the compositions of these two men we know little. The overture composed by Roth in 1771 has already been mentioned. Sonek also gives a hunting song set to music by Mr. Roth in 1790. Sonek credits File with the following compositions. 1787 1. Violin Concerto by Mr. File 1792. Harmony Music, File 259. In addition to these we have, 1791 3. Overture by P to be played at Vauxhall Concert, May 27 264. Concerto Violin by Mr. File. At Vauxhall September 2 261. Footnotes, 233 Sonek, Early Secular American Music, Index. 234 See above, p. 54. 235 Cf. City Directory of Philadelphia, 1785. 236 Peter Marco, 1768–1792, born at Santa Cruz, West Indies, educated in ENG, died at Philadelphia. 237 Son of Francis Hopkinson mentioned above as an important figure in Philadelphia. Musical development, cf. above, pages FF 238 Polson's Daily Advertiser, January 13, 1829. 239 cf. above, p. 54. 240 Piajour, September 10, 1788. 241 Piajour, January 7, 1789. 242 City Directory, 1791, p. 110. 243 City Directory, 1795, p. 81. 244 cf. above p. 77. 245 cf. above, p. 89. 246 City Directory, 1806. 247 cf. Letters of Administration, Book K, number 156, p. 178 in Office of Recorder of Wills, City Hall, Philadelphia. 248 PA Packet, March 6, 1784. 249 Durang, History of the Stage in Philadelphia, Chapter 12, a rare book. 250 Sonek, Early Secular American Music, p. 189. 251 NY Packet, July 13, 1786. 252 PA Packet, January 13, 1787. 253 See above, Note to 72. 254 Sonek, Article in Samel Banda, 1901, p. 156. 255 Baltimore Clipper, 1841. 256 G. W. Custis, Recollections and Private Memoirs of Washing. p. 368. Also Diary of Geo. Washington 1789–1791, ed. B. J. Lossing, 1860, p. 56. 257 Sammelbandeter Internationalen Musikgesellschaft, 1901. 258 Many writers have expressed an opinion, but evidently their information consisted of a knowledge of only one claim. 259 C.F. Sonek, Early Secretary A.M. Music for these compositions. 260 A.M. Daily ADV, May 25, 1791. 261 A.M. Daily ADV, September 2, 1791. Conclusion. We have tried to show the gradual growth of musical taste in Philadelphia, especially the taste for German music. As before mentioned, this taste was undoubtedly stimulated mostly by the English musicians, at least until the last period. In that period the English and German musicians seem to have worked in conjunction to keep up the standard set by their predecessors. It must not be thought that German music alone ruled in Philadelphia. During the French Revolution, especially, many refugees arrived in Philadelphia and concerts of French music were given and great enthusiasm was aroused among the American citizens. However, on looking over the whole century, German music seems to predominate over the music of other nations in Philadelphia. Musical taste in Philadelphia after the Revolution will compare favorably with the taste shown in Europe at the same period. Appendix. Works of Alexander Reinagel. Unless otherwise noted, this list has been taken from O.G. Sonek's Early Secular American Music. They are given here according to date of production. 1787 1. Overture. To a select collection of the most favorite Scots tunes. With variations for the pianoforte or harpsichord. 3. A song, newly composed. 1788 4. Federal March, as performed in the Grand Procession in Philadelphia, the 4th of July, 1788. Composed and adapted for the pianoforte, violin, or German flute. 1789 5. Song. Adieu Thou Dreary Pile. Arranged for pianoforte or harpsichord by Reinagel. 6. Chorus, sung before General Washington, as he passed under the Triumphal Arch on Trenton Bridge, April 21, 1789. Set to music and dedicated by permission to Mrs. Washington. 7. Song. In vain fond youth you would conceal. 8. Song. My soul is thine, sweet Nora. 9. Song. The soldier tried, etc. 10. Song. Tantive back forward. 11. Song. 'Tis not the bloom on Damon's cheek. These songs were arranged by R for pianoforte or harpsichord. 12. Overture. La Schiava, Puccini. 13. Overture to Opera Maria, Shield. These overtures arranged for PF by R. 1791 14. Song. Winter. Set to music by R with PFACC 15. Miscellaneous Quartet. Played at the City Concert March 5, 1791 and often the remainder of the season 262. This composition is dated by Sonek 1793. 16. New Miscellaneous Quartet. To be played at the City Concert December 17, 1791 263 1794. 17. Song. America, Commerce, and Freedom. By R. 18. La Chaussee, Rossetti. Arranged for pianoforte or harpsichord by R19. Concerto on the improved pianoforte with additional keys. 20 La Forêt Noire, serious pantomime. Overture, etc., entirely new, composed by Mr. Reinagel. 21 Occasional Overture. 22 Preludes in 3 classes, for the improvement of practitioners on the pianoforte. 23 Robin Hood, comic opera, original overture by Baumgarten, additional airs by R24. Slaves in Algiers, play interspersed with songs, music by R25. Spanish Barber, opera translated from Beaumarchais, by G. Coleman, additional airs by Reinagel and Carr 1795. 26 Harlequin Shipwrecked, pantomime. New music by R27. Harlequin's Invasion, pantomime. New medley overture by R28. Volunteers, comic opera. Music and overture entirely new. 29 The Purse, musical drama by J. Cross, accompaniments and new airs by R30. Auld Robin Grey, opera, new music, and a Scottish medley overture by R1796. 31 Mountaineers, comic opera, accompaniments by R32. Pierre de Provence and La Belle Maguelone, new music by R. This was also called The Rival Knights or La Belle Maguelone of Pantomime 264. Probably this was the same thing as Pierre de Provence, although the latter was advertised as a ballet. 33 Grand Divertissement in the Temple of Liberty, taken from the celebrated ballet, called, Warriors Welcome Home. The overture and music compiled by Mr. Reinagel, in which is introduced a number of Irish and Scotch airs. 265-34. The Shamrock, Irish Dance, Irish Medley Overture by R. 266-35. Witches of the Rocks or Harlequin Everywhere, pantomime, with an entire new overture, songs, choruses, and recitations composed by Mr. Reinagel. 1797-36. Columbus, historical play, incidental music by R37. Savoyard, musical farce, music by R 1798. 38 The Gentle Shepherd, written by Alan Ramsay. With original airs and the accompaniment by Mr. Reinagel. This was called the Favourite Comical Scots Pastoral and was to be performed at the New Theatre 267-39. Italian Monk, opera, music, and accompaniment by R 1799. 40 Monoi. On the death of the much lamented, the late Lieutenant General of the Armies of the United States. The music composed by R. Taylor, and Mr. Reinagel. To be given at the New Theatre 268-41. Bluebeard, opera accompaniments by R. 42 The Arabs of the Desert, or Harlequin's Flight from Egypt, with a new overture and music, composed by Mr. Reinagel 269, probably before 1800, date not known. 43 Collection of favorite songs, divided into books. The basses rendered easy and natural for the pianoforte or harpsichord by Alex Reinagel. 1844. Masonic Overture. 45 Naval Pillar, musical entertainment, accompaniments by R. 46. Pizarro, by Kotzebue, adapted by R. B. Sheridan, music by Reinagel and Rayner Taylor. Footnotes, 262 CFAM Daily ADV, March 4, 1791. Also programs given in this book for 1791. 263 CFAM Daily ADV, December 15, 1791. 264 CFAM Daily ADV, June 27, 1796. 265 CFAM Daily ADV, March 28, 1796. 266 Perhaps the same as advertised in AM Daily ADV, May 7, 1794. 267 AM Daily ADV, April 16, 1798. 268 AM Daily ADV, December 23, 1799. 269 CFAM Daily ADV, April 13, 1799. Americana Germanica new series monographs devoted to the comparative study of the literary, linguistic, and other cultural relations of Germany and America. Editor Marion Dexter Learned, University of Pennsylvania. Contributing editors H. C. G. Brandt, W. H. Carpenter, W. H. Carruth, Herman Collett, Starr, W. Cutting, Daniel K. Dodge, A. B. Faust Kuno, Frank Adolf Gerber, Julius Goebel, J. T. Hatfield, W. T. Hewitt, A. R. Hallfeld, Hugo K. Schilling, H. Schmidt, Wartenberg, Herman Schoenfeld, Calvin Thomas, H. S. White, Henry Wood, Philadelphia Americana Germanica Press, Berlin Meyer and Muller, New York Carl A. Stern, Leipzig F. A. Brockhaus, London Keegan, Paul, Trench, Trubner & Co., Limited, Paris H. L. E. Sudier. Transcriber's note: minor punctuation errors have been changed without notice. Inconsistencies in hyphenation have been standardized. The spelling of the surnames was standardized. The exception is Tannenberger/Tannenberg, which was left as published because a footnote refers to the alternate spelling. Page 58, dashes were removed from the table for readability purposes. Page 68, for the Vauxhall concert, Sep 2 section. Duplicate number 3 and number 4 were removed. The following printer errors have been changed. Page adds, The Influence of Salomon, The Influence of Salomon. Page adds, Hymnology and the Sources, Hymnology and the Sources. Page 7, Anfangseinstranger, Anfangseinstranger. Page 7, Scylla Theologia, Aliquot, Scylla Theologica, Aliquot. Page 10, of the Bohemian Brethren, of the Bohemian Brethren. Page 10, Unparteisk Lieder, Unparteisk Lieder. Page 10, Nuis und Vespa certs, Nuis und verbs certs. Page 13, Services, Especially Services, especially. Page 13, Christina. Delaware, to Christiana, Delaware, to. Page 18, on the Wissahickon, on the Wissahickon. Page 41, Coat of Arms containing, Coat of Arms containing. Page 42, of musical merchandise, of musical merchandise. Page 46, was popular, and probably was popular, and probably. Page 47, and in 1763 received the, and in 1763 received the. Page 47, Provincial Council of, Provincial Council of. Page 49, Pepusch, Alexis a cantata. Pepusch, Alexis a cantata. Page 52, Least a semi-worldly, Least a semi-worldly. Page 59, G. Sui et Sarai, J. E. Sui et Sarai. Page 59, Trace humble servitor. Trace humble servitor. Page 59, Moise de Fevrier, Moise de Fevrier. Page 60, Offentlich Kunthen, und Offentlich Kunthen, und. Page 60, Sie nach Nene Rondos, Sie nach Nui Rondos. Page 60, Niemand etwas nachgedruckt, Niemand etwas nachgedruckt. Page 60, Ihnen solken nachdrucken, Ihnen solken nachdrucker. Page 60, Erlognis Zeuiram, Erlognis Zeuiram. Page 64, 4. Quartet, clarinet. 4. Quartet, clarinet. Page 78, Evident ally, not personally, evidentially, not personally. Page 80, Sammelband der Internationalen Musikgesellschaft, Sammelband der Internationalen Musikgesellschaft. Page 80, states that Philip Roth. Page 86, 24. Spanish Barber. 25. Spanish Barber. Footnote corrections, italics for footnotes 158 to 162, 164 were standardized. 32, Sask, Justus Faulkner Sachse, Justus Faulkner 55, History, 16 History, Volume 1676, The Voyage, Shipwreck and the Voyage, Shipwreck and 78, March 5 to 14, 172-7/8 March 5 to 14, 1727-880, History of Feta. History of Philadelphia. 88, Handel and Haydn 112, P. Gazette, May 1 PA Gazette, May 1 115, Mittelberger's Journey 224, History of the Stage 229, Personal Recollections 257, Sammelbender Internationalen Musikgesellschaft Sammelbender Internationalen Musikgesellschaft. End of the Project Gutenberg ebook. Early German Music in Philadelphia. Updated editions will replace the previous one. The old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works, so the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the General Terms of Use part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark, and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose, such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances, and research. Project Gutenberg ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start, full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works, by using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg. You agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark license available with this file or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg Trademark Electronic Works 1.a. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg trademark electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark/copyright, agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg trademark electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PGLOF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying, or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg trademark mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg trademark works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg trademark name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg trademark license when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg trademark work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg, 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg trademark license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg trademark work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.e.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg trademark license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.e.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg trademark license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg trademark. 1.e.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.e.1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg trademark license. 1.e.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, If you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg trademark work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg trademark website, www.gutenberg.org, you must, at no additional cost, fee, or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg trademark license as specified in paragraph 1.e.1. 1.e.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg trademark works unless you comply with paragraph 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works provided that, you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg trademark works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg trademark works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark works. 1.e.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg trademark electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1.f.1.f.1. Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg trademark collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects, such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2. Limited warranty, disclaimer of damages, except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg trademark electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs, and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the Foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive, or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3 Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4 Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you as is, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5 Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion, and distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs, and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg trademark work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg trademark work, and C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg trademark. Project Gutenberg trademark is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers including obsolete, old, middle-aged, and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg trademark's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg trademark collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg trademark and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's IN or Federal Tax Identification Number is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City, Utah 84116801596-1887. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg trademark depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork, and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways including checks, online payments, and credit card donations. To donate, please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg trademark electronic works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg trademark concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg trademark ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg trademark ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the U.S. unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg trademark, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks. Americana Germanica, early German music in Philadelphia. Forward table of contents. Introduction. Footnotes, Chapter I. Footnotes, Chapter 2. Footnotes, Chapter 3. Footnotes, Chapter 4. Footnotes, Chapter V. Footnotes, Chapter 6. Footnotes, Chapter 7. Footnotes, Chapter 8. Footnotes, Conclusion. Appendix. Footnotes. Transcribers note the full Project Gutenberg license PG-13, PG-14, PG-15, PG-1, PG-2, PG-3, PG-4, PG-5, PG-6, PG-7, PG-8, PG-9, PG-10, PG-11, PG-12, PG-13, PG-14, PG-15, PG-16, PG-17, PG-18, PG-19, PG-20, PG-21, PG-22, PG-23, PG-24, PG-25, PG PG26 PG27 PG28 PG29 PG30 PG31 PG32 PG33 PG34 PG35 PG36 PG37 PG38 PG39 PG40 PG41 PG42 PG43 PG44 PG45 PG46 PG47 PG48 PG49 PG50 PG51 PG52 PG53 PG54 PG55 PG56 PG57 PG58 PG59 PG60 PG61 PG62 PG63 PG64 PG66 PG67 PG68 PG70 PG71 PG73 PG74 PG75 PG76 PG77 PG78 PG79 PG80 PG81 PG82 PG83 PG84 PG85 PG86 PG87 PG88